Are we on? Yes, now we're on. Now I'm on. Okay. Hey, at least I didn't spend 20 minutes with the... Oh my god, Buffy joining the secret Halo Club. Okay. Y'all are going to make me work now. Now that I got subscribers on YouTube, I'm going to have to work. We're going to be putting out some wallpaper for the no-com level. We're going to be doing special streams, I think, for some of the levels. Everybody who's a member at all gets all the emotes. Hey, everybody. Good to see you here. Good to see you here. Yeah, we're going to cover something. I was worried it might be old hat. You know, you might have, you know, kind of like... This has been a discourse. You know, the patriotic communism thing has been like kind of a discourse for a while, and I don't think I've ever really addressed it specifically, so I wanted to go ahead and get that. Haas has put out a new video, and you know, this is an important concept to get, right? Because it could seem appealing to certain people to like reach out to the Magas. There's a certain brainworm in the left that says, I hate liberalism so much that I kind of like the red hats. And that's a bad brainworm, right? And we need to like kind of expose it for what it is, right? Before it takes hold. Because you're dealing with a major party, the party of the left is not doing right by the workers, is not doing right by unions, has not been taking seriously its role as an opposition to, you know, to unbridled capitalism for a long time. Like, we're talking since like the 80s, basically. If you want to go back, you can see Ronald Reagan was not supposed to win. Ronald Reagan was a joke candidate, very much in the same way that Donald Trump was a joke candidate. There was no way. He's an actor. What are you talking about? You can't elect an actor president. They elect an actor president. And it turns out that, guess what? Actors are really good at manipulating people's emotions. So he's president for 2 terms. Then his vice president gets in, and the Democrats freak out. They are like, we cannot go on the way that we're going. Here's the deal. The Republicans have tapped into big business, and they're getting money from that. They're getting clout from that. They changed the you know, election rules, right, to allow more money into politics. And we got to get on that train. So from now on, we're Republican light. When people think that the Republicans, I like them, but they're a little bit too much on this, they're a little bit too much on that, they pay much, you know, they might ban abortion or something like that, then they'll be like, aha, here you can go with the same economic policies, virtually, but you may be better social policy. So that's the game that the Democrats have been playing for the last, what, 40 years? Is that fucking 40 years since the 80s? Yeah. Probably more like 30 years, because it was like, you know, it was around, anyway. So that's why this is dangerous, right? The Democrats aren't doing their job on economics, right? And they're not gonna do it for a while. Like, it's not, it's still a battle. There's a lot of people on, you know, the left that want that to happen, or that want another party to supplant the Democrats, but we're not there yet, right? And so because we're not there yet, there's a danger of people like Haas or people like Tucker Carlson from the right. You can either approach the Nazgul vortex from the left or from the right. Haas is approaching it from the left. Well, is he? We're about to talk about that, chat, because Haas's brand of communism is conservative communism. What the fuck is conservative communism? Well, let me take you back. The first time I ever heard of conservative communism, it was from Theory Plebe, right? And it was because I think I criticized Kelly Zahos's video, and, you know, Plebe is a friend of Miss Zahos, right? And, you know, was a little bit upset with me, right? And was trying to explain to me that this is not anything to freak out about. This is just conservative socialism, conservative communism, right? And it didn't strike me good then, and it doesn't strike me good now. I think that this is something that we need to deal with. Anyway, let me change it so that chat's actually on screen, chat. I'm coming with a lot of energy, and I want to talk to you, but I know you want to get to the content too, so I'm going to be conscious of that. But yeah, thank you so much, Buffy Geek, for subscribing at the Secret Halo level. Hey, if you haven't noticed already, my Secret Halo is starting to show. People are starting to get it. That this abuse and harassment I've been putting up with is not something I did to myself, right? If you really want to be a true dyed-in-the-wool NCC hater now, you have to believe that A, I'm spying on everyone. B, I did the harassment to myself. Is there a C? It feels like you should have rule of threes. There's probably something else that you've gotta believe in order to be like a true NCC hater. Oh yeah, I love drama, but that's an old one. We know about that one. That one's been going, that narrative has been going on forever, because every time somebody attacks me, they say, she loves drama. And it's like, motherfucker, do I look like I'm enjoying myself? I don't think so. But yeah, my secret halo's starting to show. It's kind of, some new evidence has come out, and there is a new #1 suspect for who the harasser is, and it's decidedly not me. In fact, it's someone who was accusing me, right? So I'm not gonna take a, I'm not gonna plant my flag on that. I don't really know what's going on. This shit is actually kind of complicated, but basically the skills that you'd need to make accounts as fast as the harassment. So people have taken stock. People have taken like Amazon, like they've gone to Amazon for data, and they've looked at the accounts that were harassed me, that were created, and they've determined that some of them were created too quickly to have just been done by a person, creating accounts. It's got to be like a computer program, right? And so they started looking into like, well, who has the skills to make such a computer program? And guess what? It's not me. I'm disorganized, I'm doing a lot of content, and I am barely... Oh yeah, you also gotta believe that my gameplay is pre-recorded, because every time that they have a theory about me, like, she's doing all the harassment, then there's like somebody that comes up and says, yeah, but she's playing Persona. Like, she couldn't be making the account because she's playing Persona. So then they gotta be like, oh, okay, well, the gameplay is pre-recorded. And oh my god, chat, I feel like they've thrown every single scandal that could possibly befall a streamer at me, and surprisingly, I'm still standing. So let's get to the content. We're not just talking about me here. I just wanted to give you a little update about that shit if you have been concerned about that. Concerned if you are watching the stream of a sussy baka. It's looking like not so much now. It's looking like not so much.
Recently, there's been a lot of controversy over the question of American patriot.
Okay, so we watched this... Fuck, we watched this. This is the one with Ezra, I think, right? So here's, wait. Oh, there's one more that I'm looking for from Infrared, right? This is an older one. Let's look for the newer one. Why communism is conservative. Okay, so this will be Haas himself, right? We've seen Infrared as a collective.
So it...
Oh my god, he's so loud. We've seen the take of Infrared as a collective on conservative communism, but we haven't really watched Haas's take on this, right? And I guess he's put it out. So let's take a look at that. We're also going to look at Surprise, We Love America by Peter Coffin. And I think there's also a Caleb Maupin video that we might try to get through. I don't know, chat. I can't take Caleb Maupin. I don't know about you, but Haas is entertaining. Peter and Miss ACD are cringe, which is entertaining, but like Caleb is just... I don't like Caleb. There's no redeeming value.
Turns out that the Giga Chat guy, it turns out that this guy is a communist, or he's like he has nostalgia for the DDR. GDR, made in GDR, right?
Let's try this
by the way,
way,
East Germans and Russians have a very profound closeness with one another.
Oh my god!
For historical reasons, right? And this got like 4,000 likes, and the American lefties are so excited by it. They're like, "Oh my god, he's just like me!"
That is not.
And they got so excited and happy at this news. They were like, they literally think that like this is who, like that guy is on their side. Like this is the representation of them. And that leftoids are the true chads.
Fucking
whatever,
leftoids
right?
are the true chads.
I had
what
to
are you
ruin
talking
the
about?
party. You know me. I had to ruin the fucking party.
You
right?
always. Oh my god.
I
Let's turn this
completely
off.
shattered
Why is this
and
still on?
destroyed this fantasy for them.
Is this?
You want to know what
music?
I did? Here's what I did. I said,
please tell
stop
me.
assuming he's one of you, American leftoids. He's a real communist, which means very likely conservative, and would be considered a fascist right-winger here in America, just like I am. And Caleb is, and so many others are. In America, this guy would be 100% pro Dave Chappelle. This guy would be 100% not on board with gender criticism, wherever the fuck that is. He would be 100% a down-to-earth conservative guy. Because that's how they are in Eastern Germany and Eastern Europe and in Russia. That's how communists are.
Fuck me. Okay, I don't know. Can we muster the weird champs? Let's see. Yeah, let's put this in here. I thought that was my music for a second, but it looks like that was Haas. This is what bugs me about Haas. He always streams with music, and it demonetizes him, and it demonetizes me. I guess he doesn't care that much about the American worker YouTuber, right? Trying to scrape by here. He's got to put on copyrighted music. Okay, so there's Haas. Oh my god, I'm so confused here. Wait, that shouldn't be. That should be. Okay, sorry chat, I'm usually not this bad with Firefox. Okay, I think I know how to do this. And then go from here to here. There we go. There we go. We're back on track. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. Apparently, I suck at OBS. So, but here we go.
The GigaChad guy, it turns out that this guy is a communist, or he's like he has nostalgia for the DDR. GDR, made in GDR.
Okay, wait, so Haas is saying that the actual dude here, like, this is a real person. I didn't know that the chat, did you know that the GigaChad was real? Oh my god, I'm not reading chat, and chat's not up. Why is chat not up? Ugh. I am failing so hard. Okay, yeah? Like that. Yeah, there we go. There's chat. That's what you look like, chat. I better work. I need to work. I'm gonna have to work. I'm gonna seriously have to work. It's personas all the way down. Oh, I am, or GDR wasn't communism. Haas is just plain wrong about East Germans being more conservative. Is gender criticism the vagina? Oh, wait, the vagina complex. Wait, is that like a analog to something else? Eastern Germany, very conservative, like Eastern Europe. You love my choker. Thank you, Phoenix. Good to see you. Good to see you all. I'm so sorry, like, this stream is, like, been weird starting off. It was all part of the holes theory. Oh, fuck the vagina. Oh, my God. Chat, I was just talking about this the other day. This is one of the reasons that the imposter Irene was able to impersonate me so well that some of my ex-mods believed it was me. And that is part of why they attacked me. That's their justification anyway. I don't know if they really believed it or if they just wanted to believe it, right? They were just looking for a reason to try to sabotage me. But yeah, like, and it's because as a streamer, I get so much input, and it's you know, every day it's like new stuff, new memes, new things happening, new content to cover. I forget about my old content. I forget what I did. I forget so much shit. And like, I had already forgotten the vagina complex. The vagina industrial complex was already out of my head, even though it was a great meme and it was only like less than a week ago, right? And that is because being a streamer is like, I don't know, it's like being in a JRPG or something like that, you know? There's just so much going on in the plot that you're like, somebody asks you to remember back to disc 1, and you're just like, I don't know, we were in Balam Garden, and then there were gun blades. I don't know, you don't remember everything,
right? And by the way, East Germans and Russians,
this is bad, Chad. I don't know what to do about this. There's so much throughput, right? You know what I mean? There's so much.
Got like 4,000.
There's just so much throughput as a streamer.
The American lefties are so excited by it. They're like, "Oh my God, he's just like me!" And they got so excited and happy at this news. They were like,
so
they literally think that like this is who, like that guy is on their side. Like this is the representation of.
Okay, so here's the deal. I don't care if this guy's on my side. Like, does that tell you that communism is good if a fucking aesthetic motherfucking roided out, you know, beautiful man, is like, you know, a tanky versus, anarchist versus, does it really mean anything? Right? It would mean something to a right-winger. Like, they're very much about that, but guess what? Guess what? We got a right-winger! We got a right-winger right here, so he cares. He gives a fuck who this guy like identifies as. And there's probably some American lefties that like, you know, will talk shit on Twitter about this stuff too. But Haas, he's invested. He needs this man to be on his side, right? He needs this shit. He needs to, like, the Chads, they have to look to a bigger Chad, right? And if the bigger Chad is the same ideology than you, all the better.
Them. And that leftoids are the true Chads or whatever.
On the
right?
chat on the screen is Twitch. Fuck. Oh, here we go. I didn't even transition. You gotta hit that transition button, chat. It changes everything.
And destroyed this fantasy for them. You want to know what I did? Here's what I did. I said, stop assuming he's one of you, American leftoids. He's a real communist, which means very likely conservative, and would be considered a fascist right-winger here in America, just like I am,
so,
and Caleb is, and so many others are.
Just like American conservatives. The American conservatives? I'm sorry, that's not what I'm saying. Haas is American, right? American, not... Okay, yeah, anyway, just like, because he's putting up, oh my god, he's putting up this thing where, like, you know, like, communists of different parts of the world, he tries to make this claim that every third world communist, or every third world is not even like the way to say that anymore, every non-Western, even that's a social construction too. Jesus Christ, our language is kind of fucked, I just noticed. Anyway, that around the world, if you pick a random communist, you're most likely to find a tanky. That's Haas's claim, is that most real communists are tankies, and there's only American communists that are you know, that have a bad association with that kind of stuff, right? And that, you know, real communists are conservative. But he's also playing on the idea that back in the day, people were more conservative than they are now. That's somewhat true. And so therefore, the real communism is the communism of, you know, yesteryear, right? The real communism is old communism, right? We're not doing communism. Communism has degenerated. Chat, do you see how right-wing this shit is? Yeah. He's worked the degeneration, the modern culture being degenerate, like, you know, motif into his ideology, right? The real communism is the comrades that we made along the way. Oh my god. Trad Chad communism is not something you could make up, and yet
in America, this guy would be 100% pro Dave Chappelle. This guy...
That's such a weird idea. In America... Okay, wait. What? What does that mean? In America, he would be pro Dave Chappelle?
Would be 100% not on board with gender criticism, whatever the fuck that is.
Wait. No, Haas. Holy shit. Did you see that? He knows the transit issue so little that he thinks that gender critical means, like, pro-trans, right? I've said before that this dude walked backwards into some turf talking points without even realizing it. Yeah. He thinks gender critics, it's like that we're the gender critics. We're like, I don't know about gender, you know, or like, right? And like that we're trying to question biology, you know, it's just right-wing shit. Like, I mean, like the TLDR, he's a right-winger, and people don't take it seriously because he's like, I'm a communist. I'm like, feel like, okay, you know, he's a, you know, conservative communist. No, dude, he's a right-winger. He loves Maga. He loves everything conservative, traditional. He's the whole enchilada, except with like with a candy commie coating, I would say. There's like there's a candy coating of communism on him, but you scratch the surface and you've got some really nasty stuff underneath. Maybe so. Maybe, hey, I didn't even think about that, Sabrina. Maybe he's confusing it with critical race theory. How could he have possibly have hooked up with Caleb, I wonder? Huh, exactly.
He would be 100% a down-to-earth conservative guy, because that's how they are in...
That's how they are. That's how it's always been. God, it's just like there's so much about Haas's like
in Eastern
he's
Germany
so fucking
and Eastern
conservative.
Europe and in Russia. That's how communists are, right?
East Germany had gay rights before West Germany did. Yeah, that's true. And what there at different times, right? Maybe the Soviet Union was. Oh, I don't know if this is true or not. Am I right about this, chat? That at certain times the Soviet Union has been more progressive than the U.S. on things like gay rights. Communist conservatism, though.
Right? They're very similar temperamentally, in terms of their mentality, and in terms of their values, as are American conservatives. They're very similar, right? Continuing on, let's see where the current war stands. So this is 524, 513. Should I just address this argument first? Because maybe you guys like aren't sufficiently aware of why this is a stupid fucking argument. I'll explain it in a really simple way. So
there he goes. There he goes.
Very conservative does not mean you are.
It's still the old chat on screen. Oh, thank you. Oh my god, Impact, thank you. God damn. See, like, I'm the fucking, like, listen, chat, you gotta understand, though. I'm the genius that spied on everyone and controlled all harassment on Twitch, right? I mean, I can't get the right chat on screen. I can't handle OBS, but I definitely did all the sus shit that they said that I did, right? And I pre-recorded my gaming footage because like I have that much forethought. I do that much preparation. Do people understand? Yeah, like my executive function, chat, is second to none, right? You can tell that, right? You can tell that I'm a high executive functioning individual with no problem with some attention deficit disorder or anything like that. This is, anyway, chat, I've been blabbing while I should be getting the chat fixed. It's a very simple workaround. There we go, and there we go. You stubbed your toe because of me. Oh my god, I'm sorry. It's probably because I'm evil.
Criminalizing abortion or homosexuality.
The ghost of past chat.
I don't know why this
person. Anybody, I want people to understand this. Anybody who gives me feedback, who's like, hey, you're not doing this, like, you're a fucking hero to me, okay? Because I have this ADHD brain that doesn't even notice shit like the fact that chat was like not moving, that it was like the old chat. I really need that help. Anytime anybody like watches my back, like, I'm never resentful of it. Like, I mean, I don't like being, you know, I don't like being shamed for my ADHD, but when somebody's just like reminding me of something that I didn't do, and it's just a very matter of fact, hey, you need to get this done. That's like the best thing in the world. That is like the best thing in the world for me.
Is saying LGBT relationships when in the legal code in the GDR they were talking about homosexuality, right? Regardless, this was a straw man.
Lenin decriminalized abortion and homosexuality. I think that's what you mean. Yeah, I think that's what I mean.
And from the very beginning, because
I sort of know what I'm talking about.
I was not talking about LGBT or whatever. And it's weird that they're mentioning LGBT when all
I know that, Impact. I know that it feels like calling me out. Thank you for doing it anyway, though, because like I need it.
I said was pronouns in the bio. You know, the majority of leftists who have pronouns in the bio are cisgendered and straight. Okay, so I don't know what angle you're trying to come off when it comes to that. This is actually just not true in terms of any bearing on the conservatism, the overall conservatism of the German Democratic Republic.
Wait,
right?
why is he looking at the trending?
Here, and it's called, I would call it the American exceptionalist notion of progress, which is inherited from
cisgendered.
So the
oh my god! So people notice that too. That a lot of times when people say transgender, they'll say transgendered. And like, listen, chat. I gotta put a caveat on here. Some cis people do it completely innocently. They've heard it that way. They think that's what the word is. It makes sense to them, but you gotta recognize the reason that it makes sense is a little bit disturbing, and that is because it sounds like something unfortunate that happened to us, right? Yeah. It sounds like it's like a past tense verb. You got transgendered. I'm sorry. And listen, it's not usually meant that way. But the word is transgender, and we kind of need to defend that sort of thing. It might feel really nitpicky, though, to say this, you know, to a cis person. It can be. Like, I tried to get someone to call me she, her instead of they, them pronouns. Like, you know, there's somebody that was just into this. I'll just call everybody they, them pronouns because, you know, it's easier to remember. I don't have to remember your gender pronouns, no comment check. I'll just call you they, them. That's not that wrong, is it? That's okay, right? That's, you know, like, no. You're introducing me to a brand new audience. Please call me she, her so I don't have to explain to everyone that that's the, you know, like, right, you know, and it's you know, it's hard to do, and sometimes you'll get taken as being like really abrasive for doing it, but you kind of got to defend that. Same thing when somebody says transgenderism, okay? transgenderism is not a thing. They want to use it as like the stand-in for like trans rights. That's what they mean. Then say trans rights, right? Because transgenderism is not a thing. And the way that the right wing plays that word off is as if there's a philosophy and its end game is to change everyone's gender. Now that sounds absurd, but somewhere in the back of cis people's mind, somebody making the choice to change their, to transition puts to them the threat of forcefully having their gender changed, and it's just not there. It's like the same thing with Professor Flowers and Vosh, insinuating that that there's some kind of agenda to do to white people what white people have done to others, and it just doesn't exist. It's just not realistic. It's not a thing. No one's trying to do that. That is not a thing. That is a complete fucking paranoid phantasmagory that happens in the cis mind because of brainworms. So we got to do the best to pluck those brainworms when we see them, and they're not gonna like it. It's like plucking a gray hair off somebody. It's like, oh, you got to just do it fast, because they're not gonna sit there and like let you pluck the gray hair. You just got to do that. You got to be like, oh, brainworm, brainworm, and you're gonna get clapped back. You're gonna get shit on. You're gonna get called abrasive. You're gonna get called a super meanie butt, even though you're not. But we got to defend that stuff, right? Because language is important. And the people who are trying to take away our rights often use language in order to frame the discussion, in order to frame the argument in a different way. And yeah, that's I know it sounds nitpicky, right? But sounds like a guilty conscience. That's a lot of what it's from. It's disappointing. Yeah, I agree. Totally. And trans women, trans space woman, not trans woman one. I kind of agree. Yeah, I kind of like that better. It's a specific. I've never thought about it, but yeah, I guess the combination word always made me a little bit uncomfortable. It's a specific descriptor. Okay, yeah, a woman who is trans rather than a separate class of being. like trans woman, as one word almost implies, seems small, but it's how people understand. Yeah. Like we got as much as you're gonna get shit for it. You got to fight for language, because language is defining you.
Of Whig history is basically this idea that there's such a thing as linear progress, and the more shocking and provocative a new cultural trend or state policy
I should have gotten a drink.
In regards to the status quo of society.
Chat, can you hear the vacuum going on above me?
Of some,
is that picking up on the mic?
Progress that there's just it's just gonna keep on happening until I don't know we make furries become acceptable or something and start fucking animals.
No, Haas, it's gonna be mandatory. Furry's going to be mandatory. It's not just going to be acceptable. It's like there's going to be furries, people walking around in fursuits, with baseball bats, like, looking to enforce furry. No, there's not. That's not on the table. That's not on the menu. That's not. But like, I don't know. If you want to take his bullshit to the extreme, that's what it would be: is forced mandatory fursonas. Yeah. We assign you a fursona. It's like, yeah. I don't know. Haas will be like, assigned a ladybug? Oh, impact! That's adorable! That is wholesome as fuck! I just saw... Can you hear the vacuum? Can you hear that? Is that coming through? I can't tell.
And
it's loud to me, but it may not be picking up on the mic.
Or whatever, right? This is actually not a materialist view. Because from a materialist...
Oh, tell me about materialism, you fucking Duganite.
Whig history notion of progress. So the American exceptionalist view of progress is basically this idea that all cultural reality...
Bitch! You're gonna talk about American exceptionalism after embracing Maga and patriotic American culture? Fuck you! Fuck you! You're ass deep in American exceptionalism. This hypocritical piece of shit! He doesn't remember what he said last week. God, he's worse than me. Streamer brain.
Arbitrary.
Zodiacs are just different forms of personas.
Unreal and do not have any substance.
Oh, okay, you could hear it for a second. Yeah, sorry about that.
And that as the passage of time increases, all of our cultural realities will increasingly become knocked over, and that all that is solid will melt into air. Finally, until we have nothing.
Yeah, you won't be able to eat food anymore because we'll move on to food 2. I don't know, Jaws. What do you think? We're gonna replace oxygen with nitrogen. Nitrogen is much better. Like, we just have to get that CRISPR gene technology in our DNA to be able to breathe nitrogen. But yeah, once we do that, we're gonna adapt to breathing nitrogen. It's much better for the environment. Like, what the fuck does he think, dude? What is he thinking?
But
everything's gonna be replaced.
Jellyfish goo and all of the stable stratified.
Dude, Haas, we'll just put you in the Matrix. Is what we'll do. We'll put your ass in the Matrix. It'll be a communistic, patriotic utopia that never could exist in real life, and you'll be in there experiencing it as if it were real, right? Just don't try to test the parameters of the program, right? Like, don't play Doki Doki Literature Club while you're in there or anything, because you might find some interesting results that indicate that you're living in a simulation, right? You just stay blissfully unaware of that fact, right?
To put it in Deleuzian terms, structures of our society will dissolve and everything will become gray goo, where we're all, pansexual.
He's read Deleuze.
Sexual, and we all have orgies all the time.
I mean, what can I say other than based?
And we become robots, and
yes,
we basically
let's become robots. Let's become robots, Haas.
Post-human future where we have
Ghost of the Shell,
artificial wombs, and all the things.
Artificial wombs, okay.
That we find.
You'd think that a misogynist like Haas would like the idea of an artificial womb. Think about that, Haas. You could take the reproductive act out of the hands of these femoids that can't be trusted with it. Like, he'd be the first in line for axolotl tanks, which is kind of, is he talking about axolotl tanks here, chat? Do you think he's read Dune? The passage of time increases. Well, according to this guy, if you're fucking got that boomer ass mentality, if you got that tradcon mentality, right, then maybe it does seem like it. Because if you want to get, you want to get to 1950 is getting further and further away, my dude. The dog whistles, just wow.
Shocking.
Oh, dude, yeah, absolutely. That's what people don't get. They don't take him seriously when he says he's a conservative because he's wrapping it in ML trappings, right?
Offensive to the sense.
And actual MLs will come in here and be like, they do not want Haas considered to be one of them.
Will eventually become completely normalized, right? So this sounds like
conservatism for its own sake is literally just the opposite of conservatism.
GDR was not conservative.
Or communism, yeah.
Because back then they decriminalized.
Weren't axolotl tanks just modified? Yes, yeah. You would. Okay, so if you were. I don't remember who it was, but it was that one group of people that they you would whenever anybody would run into them, they'd run into guys. They'd never run into women, and they were like, there was like maybe some mystery of why, and it's later explained that the women have been turned into reproductive machines, literally. Yeah, it's one of the more disturbing elements of Dune.
Homosexuality, and they allowed for free abortions, right? And that means that if it was 2021, because time has passed, they would even be more progressive.
Tlex. I've never heard that word pronounced. Tleilaxu. Because I haven't watched much of the Dune movies. I've read, strangely enough, I haven't read Dune because I think I saw the movie and I was like, that counts. I did see the movie, the old Dune movie, right? And then I read God Emperor, Children. No, I didn't read Children of Dune. I read God Emperor of Dune. I read Heretics of Dune. God, what's the one after Heretics? Does anybody remember? What's up, Nas Coco? It's socialist economics while being socially conservative. Dune is about worms. That's true. Worms and spice and drugs. Yeah, it's about a lot of things, isn't it?
But here's the thing.
Chapter House. Yeah, I fucking love Chapter House. And then what was the one about the not the Bene Gesserit, but the other chicks, right? What were the other chicks called? Honored maters. You know what I'm talking about? Animal House Dune. I never saw that. Works and spice and all things nice. Yes. And Messiah complexes and Wow, so much.
Right? The
What is
materialist
do? The real question is, what is do not about?
view will basically be
Oh,
there's an upper
worms,
limit
yeah.
to this. There actually is an upper limit to this so-called progress, and that limit is something called material humanity. It's called material humanity. There are objective human realities. There are objective material
Biological sexes exist, so...
and human realities. That's the materialist view. You have to keep in mind something, that what this person
Actually, ironically enough, like the whole idea of there are two genders, right? That is not materialist. That is not the material reality.
is saying. Just because if you were LGBT or homosexual, you are not being put in jail. And
Oh yeah, wait, so which one did Frank Herbert's son take over? Was that Chapter House or was that...
he's saying that this is proof that GDR wasn't conservative. And he's also saying that because they had abortions, the GDR wasn't conservative. Well, abortion culture is also rampant in China.
God Emperor is where he took over, okay.
A given culture...
Really? So wait, God Emperor, oh my god, so wait, everything I read is not Frank Herbert, are you serious?
cultures
I thought they only wrote like the Butlerian Jihad and some of that supplementary stuff, right?
tolerance of abortion is relative. Not every culture is going
Holy
to have
shit,
the same
chat, I've only read Frank Herbert's son and that other dude.
view or understanding of
Who's the other
abortion.
dude?
For example, in Peru and in Latin America, abortion has a very different significance than it does in China, for instance. But both are fundamentally conservative.
You read that somewhere?
Because
I know-
conservatism
yeah,
is not
you
about
could be right.
some kind of like immutable,
Not an expert.
transnational,
You're not a sandworm expert.
and trans-historical
Listen, all you gotta do is keep Shai Halud and Shaitan separate, okay? If you can just kidding.
values that are just preserved.
Wait, chat, do we want to do a vote? Let's do the first vote. Let's do the first vote, okay, for today, okay? I want to know from you, is it... Create a poll, come on, create a poll. Please, click, click, click. Please click. Oh my god. What is... Okay, create a fucking poll. No, yes or no, that's the... Okay, in that poll, that motherfucker. Come on, come on. What the hell is going on? What's going on is my... Just... Is it... I don't know if it's YouTube or if it's Firefox, but something's working very, very slowly. Oh my god, I think I know what it is. I think it's this fucking script. End poll. Thank you. God, fuck. Okay. I'm sorry, oh god, I'm gonna demonetize myself. Chat, you gotta also, like, tell me when I'm saying too many curse words. Okay, create a poll. Okay, so here's what I want to know from you. Yeah, yes, 1 over no. Okay, great. That's like, wow. Okay, ask a question. Is... Slow poke. Why can I not type, chat? Why is everything just being a sussy baka? Just fucking make the... Okay, thank you. Fuck. Is it gonna do it? Okay, I gotta stop it. I gotta stop. Don't say the F word. Don't say the F word. That is the... Oh, see, the thing is I keep clicking it, and then it's so slow that I click it again. But then when I click it... Yeah, when I click it again, I don't realize that I already clicked it, so the clicking makes it go on and off, and I'm just like, can you just click and that be that? There it is. Okay. Shai Halud or Shaitan? So what is your favorite name for the worm? Okay. Come on, you can do it. I feel like TubeBuddy should be paying me money right now because it's this YouTube third-party app that I use that's doing this to me, and I'm actually like paying for it. Like I actually paid for this one. Hunters of Dune and Sandworms of Doom. Oh, were the sequels? Yeah, I don't think I've read those. But yeah, is it Shai Hulud or Shaitan? What do you think, chat?
Their own sake. Conservatism in 2021.
Chapter House, 1985. Frank Herbert, last of the Dune series of the 6 novels. Hunters of Dune. Okay, so yeah, wait, I have read Hunters.
Specifically referring
I didn't really mind Hunters that much.
to this question of humanity. You are conservative because you believe in a material humanity that is not premised by arbitrary liberal individual wills. That's what it means to be a conservative today. To be a conservative today,
okay,
or maybe in general, is basically the view that, even if you go back to the first conservatives like to this question of humanity. You are conservative because you believe in a material humanity that is not premised by arbitrary liberal individual wills. That's what it means to be a conservative today. To be a conservative today, or maybe in general, is basically the view that, even if you go back to the first conservatives like Edmund Burke and the
I won't correct the pronunciation. It doesn't matter. It means all it means if you mispronounce a word or a name is that you're reading stuff that is, that you haven't heard talked about before, and that is based. So I'm not gonna.
People reacting to the French Revolution, who, by the way, Marx and Engels had a very ambiguous relationship to. Engels recalled in his assessment of the reactionary theorist Thomas Carlyle that Thomas Carlyle was just about the only human thinker that was available in the British canon at the time.
I disliked that he turned the Butlerian Jihad into a Terminator story.
Something along those lines.
I never read that.
Engels was critical of Carlyle, of course. He appreciated the fact that Carlyle was not...
It also means that you haven't bothered to talk to anyone about it. Nor listening to any lectures or anything from it. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Like, listen, it's my nature to make fun of. I used to make fun of Vosh all the time because Vosh will always like say a big word and he'll misremember it. So he's like combining two words, and then you have to like reverse engineer the malapropism to find out what he's actually trying to say, and it's always kind of charming. But like, I don't know, I guess I feel bad for, like, there's a lot to criticize Vosh about, and I like to stick to the substance, right? I like to make sure that if a Vosh fan comes across my work, they're not gonna say she's just being nitpicky. They're not just gonna say, oh, she just hates Vosh. They're gonna see that I have real substantive critiques, and that it's not, me trying to cancel Vosh. It's not like, me doing, that it's gonna have a chance of actually changing their mind, and maybe they have a little bit of a bad taste from Vosh too. A lot of these people do. A lot of former debate bros end up in my community just because I expressed that, I guess I carried water for these people for a while too, and I saw what the problem with that was. I saw what that causes. I saw what those perverse incentives, where they take us, and how toxic Twitch politics has become because of that, right? So I got off that train, and a lot of other people have too. But yeah, I don't, like, getting back to you're right that, it's hard for him to say that stuff and then sell himself as like, I am the true intellectual and the rest of you all are lazy and you haven't really read the stuff and you haven't engaged with the material. You're right that it does belie a lack of engagement with the material, but I guess what I'm saying is that, like, I do like that people read stuff that's outside of their realm of knowledge rather than, somebody who is, finishes their education and doesn't really read anymore. I think criticizing regular person for pronunciation is bad. Public intellectuals and thought leaders claiming to be. You're right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Is that, like, because of how he flexes his theoretical framework, his familiarity with certain theorists at least, right? And that's even kind of questionable, like how well he's read some of the theorists he likes the best, right? That it's that he does have to kind of die by the same sword that he's gonna live by, right?
Like some NPC, he actually had some kind of human
in a video game, of course. I'm not actually talking about, this is a metaphor just
to him, right? And Carlyle was an outright reactionary. He wasn't just a conservative. Okay, we have to understand.
Okay, so the poll is about this. In the movie Dune, in the book Dune, in the series Dune, in the world of Dune and Arrakis, there is a creature known as the sandworm that swims into the sands and comes out, and sometimes it produces spice, and people go and mine the spice. They're like, oh, spice, and the worm comes up and eats them, and they're like, haha, right? But there's two different names if you're are these both Freeman names maybe? And if you're being respectful and reverential, and you're like, you know, like when they're riding the worm, they say Shai Halud, right? And then later in the series, God, what is her fucking name? The chick that has that like special relationship with the sandworm because the sandworm ate her family, and she calls it Shaitan. And is it Heretics? Is it Heretics? I think it's Heretics where that happens. I can't remember the chick's name, but like, yeah, she ends up like letting one of the worms swallow her, and it doesn't hurt her. It just like, I don't know, it's this weird thing. She's got this like oneness with the worm, but she calls it Shaitan, which is kind of heretical, right? It's kind of like calling it the devil rather than calling it God.
The meaning of conservatism here, right? Because a lot of people have this idea that conservatism means you're anti-gay and well, first of all, I want you guys to be very, I want you to like be very careful here in your understanding, because the GDR did not have an LGBT movement. Open, like very, very open and outward.
That's your point, yeah.
Displays.
I agree.
Of LGBT was still considered taboo.
Thought leaders like Hazen Bosch, agnostic God, help us.
It was considered taboo, especially in media and in movies. It wasn't until the very last days of the.
Okay, so here, this is interesting, chat. Do you know what this sounds like to me? This sounds like 4chan. By which I mean, like, you know, one of those cookies that you get in a restaurant. Like, you can open it up and it read your fortune. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. But yeah, like, this sounds like a certain LGBT board, okay? Where, you know, ostensibly it's for LGBT people, but a lot of what you would see on there would be discussions of how to suppress your queer tendencies, or how to, you know, kind of like basically live in the closet, because a lot of the people there, like, they, you know, sort of accept their, you know, identity as being queer, but they're not, they think that somehow publicly displaying that is contributing to degeneracy. It's more pole brainworms is really what it is. It's pole leaking onto the rest of the boards, right? And they literally eat the worm poo-poo. Wait, that's what the stuff is? Is this a poo-poo of the worm? I didn't know that. I knew it was some kind of secretion, but I didn't know what kind of secretion. But yeah, so this has got, like, you know, this has got, like, and remember that, like, Haas's origins story includes Lefty Pole, right? So that's the connection there, right? So, like, what he's saying is that, like, yeah, be gay, be trans, be whatever, but assimilate and don't make a big deal about it, right? Because, yeah, basically, you exist, but, you know, we don't want more of you existing, I guess, is the idea. Yeah.
GDR, which was just this period of total liberalization, that you would find those things. And because this is something that also happened in the USSR. So Western NG, and I'm not saying this as an anti-LGBT guy, I'm just telling you the truth of the matter. Western NGOs and the people behind the color revolutions in Eastern Europe had so much.
He's not anti-LGBT, chat. He just supports the good ones.
Power and sway over
the non-blue hairs, right?
Of course, of those, the government and society, the civil society at the time.
People who don't wear spiked collars, yeah?
You know, people
the good LGBTs.
It appeared that the Soviet Union and the GDR during the 80s and late 80s became even more progressive than the West. But that wasn't because of communism. It was actually
mispronounced Carl Jung's name for years. Mine was, I read Ernest Hemingway, right? And Ernest Hemingway, like, if you haven't read him, he likes to drink. There's a lot of discussion, especially in For Whom the Bell Tolls, of alcohol. And I saw he was drinking this stuff called cognac, and one day I saw it in a store, and I was like, oh, cognac. And I think, like, whoever was with me just had a laugh at my expense, because obviously it's pronounced cognac.
Because of the total opposite. It was because of the complete wholesale
Lefty Pole is more, so Lefty Pole was the part of Pole that kind of just, like, was trying to go in a different direction, and it's really edgy, right? So Lefty Pole, you know, you'll hear, like, R slurs, you'll hear, like, you know, maybe even some F slurs. Most of the F slurs are going to be, like, attempts at reclamation of that word, and you know, it's just kind of a different place, right? It's like a very different vibe than what we. Hey, what's up, Clapping Cheeks?
liberalization. When you're talking just about the decriminalization, I was referring to in the late 80s, like the stuff about the movies that were finally like just about LGBT stuff.
Vosh never passed the vibe check for me. That's good of you. Yeah, I've been fooled by it way worse in my youth. Yeah, I mean, like, listen, I don't know. I think I just, like, back in the day, I actually really enjoyed the debate bro culture. I really enjoyed the blood sport stuff, and I didn't really notice, like, how much dominance paradigm that relied on. And I didn't really notice what I was kind of buying into. And it was only when Vosh got in trouble debating a trans woman that, like, his reaction to that kind of showed me that there was something really concerning, right? That he didn't just go off on the trans woman he was debating, he went off on all trans women, or all trans people, right? The public display of their sexuality is a consequence of their previous suppression by capitalist-enforced heterogeneous relationships. In socialist countries, there is no economical enforcing of that. The Duke. Okay, you like the Duke. Okay, that works. Why public display of sexuality is almost uniquely something that happens in capitalist countries. Oh, I see what you're saying. That, like, the reason for things like gay pride, for instance, are like, you know, pride was denied gay people, right? And you know, some people might see it as an ostentatious, you know, kind of celebration, but in the context of the suppression, it makes perfect sense. Playing Final Fantasy VII as a kid, reading, asking my parents what a brothel was. And I'd never come across the word brothel before. My dad nearly died laughing and wanted to know what the hell I was playing. Oh my god, yeah, those damn Square Enix games, right? Teaching the kids all the sex stuff. I don't know much, but the GDR was better in women's rights and equality. It basically had no gender pay gap and was sexually very open. A big nudist culture in Eastern Germany to this day stemmed from that. Pride was a protest, yeah.
And it was becoming more visible.
Pride began as, yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. It just being decriminalized. I need you guys to understand what decriminalization means. Decriminalization just means you're not throwing people in jail for it. I am not even anti-LGBT. My views are way more nuanced. I would say that
See, now, here's something else that's annoying, okay? And, like, I'm not talking as much about Haas here, although I'm sure Haas does have his trans defenders, right? But something that Mix Vivian pointed out on Twitter that really struck home with me was that a lot of these ultra right-wing creators, like Lauren Southern, BPF, if you know what that stands for, right? The F is... Anyway, yeah, like, they tend to try to get a trans person, usually a trans woman, like, on board with them as a fig leaf to say, no, we're not anti-trans. We're not like look, we obviously hire a, we have a trans person, working with us, right? So they'll sort of try to use trans people as a fig leaf. And unfortunately, there's no shortage of trans people to fill that role. There's a lot of people trying to gain relevance, trying to chase clout. And yes, they will even throw their own communities under the bus to do that. And we've seen a lot of that, like, lately. Bundle of yes, exactly, that person. Yeah. I'm trying not to get demonetized. Yeah, Blair White, yeah. You know that, like, I'm gonna get demonetized. It's gonna happen.
Was way more conservative than I
can't stop saying that word.
The plain truth is that there was no LGBT acceptance in the GDR. There was no promotion of LGBT. It was not something...
So he thinks that, like, things like gay pride and the gay rights movement is some kind of a promotion. Like, and you see where this runs into this. You see where this goes mask off, right? And that is in that he seems to be thinking recruitment's going on. That's his real concern, right? Is that he is like, oh yeah, if you are gay, fine, whatever, but we got to protect the children from you. So, hide yourself from society, assimilate, go along with the flow, do not talk about your identity, right? That's what he's saying.
promoted in society. It was just something that wasn't criminalized.
Oh, the first minutes. I hope I didn't.
Meaning you wouldn't go to jail for it. That doesn't mean they promoted it in their society. It doesn't mean it was...
Internalized transphobia is brutal, yeah.
Considered acceptable.
Got a video coming
up
about that.
So the GDR was just extremely conservative by American standards. It was, yeah, exactly. It was tolerated but not promoted.
You know, speaking of promoted, like, I feel like Haas is unintentionally promoting these, like, trends that were trending the day that he was doing this. Like, we're just stuck right here looking at the Twitter trends, right?
I really think people need to roll back their expectations when it comes to this. But I didn't even, for me, this was not even about LGBT whatsoever. This was about having firm, strong, conservative values. So
roll back your expectations. Thanks a lot, dickhead.
Which is a love of country, a sense of solid roots and belonging among your people, a sense of pride in your traditions, and a willingness to safeguard your history and your traditions, and even in a sense your...
He's repeating himself.
Your identity, your national identity.
Because guess what? There's no actual substance to this. This is a philosophy that seeks to create an artificial perception of an idealized time where everything was perfect, and if we could just go back to that, then we'd be fine, right? My gay uncle raised me. He was such a great man. Haas is a lefty version of Trump. He loves Trump. He loves MAGA. He loves all that shit, and people don't realize. Won't you gays stop I know, right? Yeah, your expectation. You just have to lower your expectations. Like, this is the classic diatribe towards any marginalized group, right? By class reductionist is like, you need to roll back your expectations. Listen, we're going to help you, but it's going to be through helping workers, okay? Not through helping you as a black person in the United States who has suffered historical oppression that still has an effect on your current material reality. We're just gonna play lip service to that and say that somehow you're gonna get that help that you need in the helping of the American worker, but we can't, like, you know, give you anything special, right? In other words, we're gonna leave you in a second class position, right? So that's why this shit doesn't work. You want solidarity. What that means is taking a bunch of marginalized groups and bringing them together. Do you know how that happens? With trust. Do you know how you earn trust? By understanding someone else's issues and standing up for them and considering them important and showing that group that those issues aren't something that you're gonna throw by the wayside when shit gets tough. We gotta stop throwing each other under the bus. That is not the way forward. That is not the way that we win. And that is why class reductionism fails, right?
Identity, your patriotic country identity, right?
In the BRD, openly gay people aren't even allowed to donate blood. In the GRD, trans women and men, like others, could literally get a column in the state newspaper to say they are looking for someone to date.
These things were, like, given in the DDR at the time.
Haas definitely does, yeah. I mean, he doesn't identify as one, but he's a big fan of Dugan, big fan, like, there's a lot of Nazgul DNA, let's just say, in his ideology.
Regardless of, you know, these...
In the early years of the GDR, the FDJ, Free German Youth, did not accept homosexuals. Councils made it difficult for meeting spaces and events to be held. In the 1970s, this visibly began to improve.
Legislation he's talking about. But this guy's trying to project this idea that in the GDR, you had, like, the equivalent of, like, American leftists.
There wouldn't be such a separation if there was an understanding of solidarity. That's what people like to forget. I know, and, like, when people leave solidarity behind, it's because they don't think that it's practical. And ironically enough, the thing that's not practical is moving forward without solidarity. That's how your coalition breaks apart. People think that they can keep POC on board. People think that they can keep, like, gays, LGBT people on board, right? And just kind of just be like, sit in the back, be quiet, like, we're not going to prioritize your issues, but don't worry, we're not against you, right? Is generally what the line will be. And you don't do that because that's what you're misunderstanding their material conditions. You're de-emphasizing their oppression. When you show that you don't understand what they're going through, how are they supposed to have solidarity with you? How are they supposed to trust you? That's what solidarity means. It means building trust that's been eroded, that's been broken to marginalized groups who have been traditionally been scapegoated, strawman, and left behind and screwed over, right? You can't expect somebody that's got that, that memory to just trust you when you're telling them to shut the when you're telling them to shut the fuck up about their identity.
Wielding state power.
Oh god, I keep on saying
power,
that word.
And nothing can be further from the case. And this would all be this would be way less sad when you take into account, and again, I'm not even saying I agree with this personally, but the GDR was an outlier.
Intersectionality or bust, hell yeah.
Compared to the rest of the Eastern Bloc. And the reason it was an outlier was precisely because it was the most Western country in the Eastern Bloc. In almost all the other communist states, it was not decriminalized. It wasn't.
Oh my god. Wait, what? I wonder what acid comrade here is. Sodomy was illegal in many, so that just means any gay act, I think legally is yeah. It can mean something more specific, but I think in this case they're just talking about gay sex in general. Many parts of the U.S. Years after, technically it wasn't more than just gay sex. It was almost like any non-standard sex act, like anything that wasn't just missionary PIV was considered sodomy technically, right? But in terms of enforcement, you better believe there were a lot more gay men arrested for that crime than there were hetero people practicing oral sex, which is also technically falls under that
criminalized in the Soviet Union. I mean, why wasn't it? I don't understand. Why wouldn't it be?
Well, you totally forgot Poland and Czechoslovakia.
Well, the reason is because the GDR's proximity to the West and Western liberalism, especially when you're taking into consideration the pre-war legacy of the German communists. You also have to take into account the way in which the Communist Party in Germany gained power. It didn't gain in power on a mandate of the German peasants, like the Soviet Communist Party did. It gained power because of a war, which allowed the communist intellectuals to have way more leeway in terms of experimentation.
We got 12 votes so far.
Communist parties did, right?
If you don't know what this is about, you don't have to vote. It's a Dune thing, so if you're not familiar with the Dune series at all, this probably won't make sense to you. Oh god, you almost have to have read the books. Jesus Christ, why did I go for such a niche chat? Am I narrowcasting?
But that was a bad thing, right? What was a bad thing? No,
you almost have to have read Chapter House.
I'm just talking about the plain facts of the matter. Since this person wants to bring up, first of all, the category of LGBT was not recognized or legally valid, or it had no
proximity to the West. My foot. There was barbed wire. Oh yeah, right.
In the GDR. What they were talking about,
they would shoot you if you tried to go to the West. Yeah,
not criminalized. If consenting adults had relationships, you're not going to go to jail for that. That's their policy, right?
Has anybody played the new Among Us yet?
Doesn't mean in Socialist Croatia only in 1974.
Is the update out yet? Anti-Western communism is when you're a Western conservative.
And Croatia, Tito's Yugoslavia as a whole was very liberal, right? This is a straw man argument through and through. From the very beginning, this was just a straw man argument. The fact there's this, so we have to really break down this assumption that's being implied here that, oh, for its time it was.
Yeah, there's a new update. There's new roles in Among Us. Now you can be a guardian angel, whatever that is. You can be an engineer, you can be a scientist, or you can be a shapeshifter, right? I'm guessing the shapeshifter can basically, change to another look like another character. So there's gonna be a lot. There's gonna be some strategic adaptation that needs to take place if you're an Among Us player. I have played it very few times, so although you absolutely do not have to hand it to him.
Very progressive. But this implies.
Wait. So one of the things I'll give him is that for this video, at least, he's not shouting and eating the mic so much. The EQ. Oh God, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you didn't know about this? Yeah, there's new Among Us. I don't know if I guess you get assigned these. I don't know how it works, chat. I have not played it in a long time. We should play some Among Us sometime. Hey, maybe that'll be so if you've looked, there's memberships now, right? You can get a membership to to nocommentchick, right? And we got different levels. You could just get the emotes. You can get like, you know, some more stuff with secret Halo, and you can get the most stuff with nocom. One of those things is I think that you get to play games with me, and I'm wondering how that's going to work out. So maybe Amogus could be a thing if people are into that. I'm really trying to find something though that like the most people will want to do, like, I don't know, maybe Terraria or something. I don't know, what do people play? Just
is a static
tell me in chat.
and linear
what do you
view
play?
of progress
What do you like
that
to play?
implies a certain ends. Every sense of progress implies an end. What is the ends of progress, right? If the GDR was progressive for its time, which means that in today, in 2121, they would have been even more progressive. And that over time, it's just, there's a line going up, and it's just more and more progress and acceptance. But to what end? What is the ends of that? Is what, as Marxists, as materialists, as people equipped with
actually, the end of that is to reflect a better material analysis. Like, so in the past, part of why the prescription against homosexuality was able to stand was because it wasn't really understood how common that it was. It was thought of as a some kind of an immoral act, right? Undertaken by immoral people, and like the idea that, like, no, some people just like, you know, one sex, like, you know, they like to be in relationships with the same sex, like that wasn't even like entertained, right? And as people are able to come out of the closet and start to talk about their experience, start to talk about their identity, then it becomes recognized, right? So the material reality that was there the whole time has now become apparent. I see that as comporting your philosophy more to material reality as more of it is discovered. Like, I mean, this is like Haas's viewpoint could be used to justify, like, I don't know, like a Anprim or like a, you know, like a more primitive lifestyle, like, you know, the communities that don't accept certain technology, like, you know, right, that they don't use the technology because it's new. Like, what are the ends of this technological advancement? I mean, you could say the same fucking thing. And the ends are to, you know, try to improve the material conditions, right? So you see how we get there. I think that the you know, acceptance of people as they are is entirely in line with acceptance of material realities. The TTRPG would be awesome.
materials dialectic, we have to interrogate this question.
Was that Daz's Destiny impression? Probably.
Actually,
+1 for Terraria.
Ends of the so-called progress.
Play some Fortnite.
Because,
oh my god, chat, you would love that. You'd be like shooting my. If we played a shooter, you would be like shooting me all day, because I don't think I'm good at shooters. I don't know. I've never tried them.
how
Don't bash Anprims. Trans people have always existed. In any consistent Anprim is okay with LGBTQ plus people. Yeah. Actually, I don't know that much about Anprim.
can progress be infinite?
I do understand, though, the concept of primitive communism.
And our material humanity is finite.
Which
our
I think
culture
is connected to
finite,
what you're saying.
in a sense. Now, culture changes, but culture does not change at the scale of rationalistic individual whims. You understand? Yes, history and culture
He likes Heidegger, so yeah, he's pretty close to Anprim.
changes, but it doesn't change.
The primitivists have a point, though. Down with thinking machines. That's right. Serena Butler is based.
Because of
Based.
voluntary will on the part of individuals. It doesn't change
Phone is
because
that.
individuals cast in a Cartesian way into doubt all cultural norms and decide to critique all of these norms and set them upon a new basis from the perspective of a purely individual or rational individual, right? They change according to a more organic process of the development of history and the material relations of production, which is something that is unconscious in its content. And
I don't identify as an Anprim because there's a lot of baggage that comes with it. We'd be forced to argue that anyone's strong. Yeah, like to actually move to that in any sort of, you know, quick timetable would be, you know, putting certain members of society in danger, obviously. But
something which, in terms of its scale, happens.
is Anprim just basically like get us to before the agricultural revolution? Is that sort of the goal? Is that like the agricultural revolution is the
gradually and over time? It doesn't happen because
permaculture and more holistic means of subsistence. Is that sort of the idea?
People say, well...
Oh, yeah, and also you'd have to have a smaller population, too, right? Basically adding cultural materialism, the school of anthropology, to historical materialism.
Why is it that women are the ones...
That's a super simple... Hey, well, you're getting that from a super simplistic streamer, so yay.
Who have children, and men are the ones who have sperm. Why is it that men are more masculine? Why is it that that's not how it fucking works, though, right? Now, these people thinking in a way, they're like...
Okay, we have looked a lot at Giga Chad. We have looked a lot, and I know that's the post that started this off, but I'm just going to point out that like, just like I always tend to, like, have, beautiful backgrounds, that I like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like this is his beautiful background. Like, I feel like Haas just, like, wants to have Giga Chat up on the stream as much as he can.
Well, Haas, you're just a...
Oh, you're not insulting me? No, I wouldn't take it that way. I'm just having a little fun. I'm just having a little fun with myself. Yeah, no. It's a nuanced topic and hard to sum up. Well, like I say, streamer brain, like, I forget more stuff than I know. Bioessentialism, he just got work.
Conservative reactionary, and 100 years ago, you would have been a reactionary, and you would have said the same thing about women's suffrage. No, actually, that's not how it works, because there is no...
Because he envisions a perfect time period and tries to sell you on that rather than...
No infinite linear progress. These things actually happen for reasons. Women's rights and this progressive things that are associated with the communist experience.
Wait, at Peter Coffin, is Peter Coffin in the chat?
And
did anybody see? Is Peter Coffin? Is Peter Coffin in the chat?
I might add. These things have a finite significance. It's not
Peter Coffin is watching.
Just that as time goes on, society just became more progressive, leading to the end goal of the complete cultural equality and elimination of...
This is Soy Voice.
...all differences between people. Actually, it was because what is implied by the modern subject being applied to all genders and all people regardless of their sexuality is this basic and minimal... And I'm writing...
Tier 1 sub to Peter Coffin, yay. Peter Coward.
A Substack about this. It's going to be called Marxism versus Americanism, right? And it's precisely about this topic. It's just that we do not make absolute assumptions. I'm actually going to...
He sounds like Ben Shapiro. Yeah, his soy voice does kind of sound like Ben Shapiro.
I'm going to turn the music off so you don't get distracted.
Yo, Haas, you could have done that a long time ago. Honestly, Jesus Christ,
This is a very important point. The real... historically revolutionary...
We're getting demonetized anyway. What the fuck am I saying? He's putting music on. How the fuck do I think I'm monetized with that?
Revolutionary significance of modernity and women's rights and those kinds of things merely lies in the fact that we do not make absolute assumptions epistemically about the nature and role of women and men in society. What that means is that, let me explain it to you this way. In modern society, we have a different understanding and view of knowledge than people did before. In the past, people's sense of knowledge was highly intangible and intuitive and based in faith and based in some kind of sense of sublimity. It was not based on some kind of axiomatic
women's rights and those kind of
systemic sense of absolute certainty. So there came a confusion between truth, knowledge, and certainty. Now, knowledge in the past did not mean certainty. Because, let me give you, for example, the Islamic perspective, right? Certainty, from the Islamic perspective, all you can be certain in is God, and that there's one God. Now, you may have knowledge of the truth of traditional gender roles and all those things, but you're not certain that those things are eternal and those things exist for themselves. Only God knows, right? That's what you would say. It's just only God knows, right? It's in the hands of God. That's it. You're not certain about it. But
you can't be certain about 2 + 2 = 4 either, right? You got to be like, well, I mean, you got to let God come in, and if God wants to like guide your hand to write 2 + 2 = 5 or 2 + 2 = 3, you got to have a flexible hand for, the hand of God to come down and hold your hand and like write that write that math in the correct way according to God, because really, like, the answer to those mathematical questions is all dependent on the Sky Daddy.
After
That's
Western
where we get
modernity,
the truth from. If God says that 2 + 2 = 5,
clear confusion between knowledge and certainty, right? And with modernity, these old traditional roles were finally subject to the question. Now we have modern certain knowledge over the natural world and scientifically and so on, where it's a matter of life and death.
I'm really not sure what he means by that, because this is very anti-scientific method, right? The scientific method is not about certainty. The scientific method is very cautious in its claims. It moves very methodically, right? It's you know, a method, right? And like, it's always open to questioning, reinterpretation, reevaluation, new data, new ways of understanding things, right? It's that, what the fuck is he talking about? Like, in fact, if you look at, like, you know, what a quote-unquote certainties, like scientific facts, what things that are accepted as facts, you can see that a lot of them do end up undergoing revision. So no, I don't know what you're talking about, Haas. You
do have to be certain about.
I feel like you've got a stereotyped view of scientific progress.
Some things in modern society, our modern technocratic modern society, because it's a matter of, quite literally, a matter of life and death for so many people. So many people are living today because we have some kind of, like, modern technical certainty over how, you know, medicine works, or how even agriculture works.
Yeah, science is always fixed in absolute. Yeah, that's their. It feels like that's their understanding of science. Yeah, they don't really get it as, like, a method. They just want to see it as another source of truth, you know, akin to the divine, you know, truth, right?
And how things along those lines are. Or think about astronauts on the ISS, or people in submarines. Those.
Did CTV just get a shout out, chat? Did CTV just get a shout out?
Rest, that's a matter of life or death. So life is in the hands of some kind.
Has he been talking to CTV? Why does he think about submarines?
Kind of certainty, right? With modernity, this is kind of also the meaning of all that is solid gets turned into air from the Communist Manifesto. All norms and all traditional values and all those kinds of things get subject to the standard and the rubric of the question of modern certainty, right? For example, the question arises, well, why can't women vote? If women want to vote, why can't they vote? If we are universal citizens, and that we have
a sneaky shout out.
Certain relationship between citizens and the state, and the citizen votes, and
I feel like if Haas did enough content with CTV, he might see what's wrong with Maga. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine a long-term collaboration between Haas and critically thinking veteran?
Modern society.
I think eventually like Haas would get sick of CTV.
Why shouldn't this be extended to women? Well, if you were to respond to that by saying, oh, it's because women have certain immutable characteristics which disallow them from knowing what's best.
In Germany, we have Ministry for Women, Family, Youth, and Seniors, or how ex-Chancellor Helmut Kohl phrased it, Ministry for Women and Stuff. Haas would like that short
for
name.
Themselves. You are doing something that's not conservative
women
whatsoever.
And other things.
You are making a pretense to a strictly modern sense of certainty. The emancipatory, if you want to call it that, I hate that word, significance of modernity merely lies in truly opening ourselves to things we don't know with certainty. It means we don't know with certainty what women's role is, what man's role is. We have no way of knowing this axiomatically, systemically, and with certainty. But here is where he
defends Lysenko unironically. Yes, he does. Confusing it with epigenetics. Yeah, I got a video by about that. That's the Haas debates the VR Catboys video.
Problem of American bourgeois Americanism and the corresponding.
He went to VR chat to find someone to debate about Lysenkoism.
Communist response,
and he found two Catboys.
Enters in. With American, bourgeois Americanism, you have a completely different view. It's not only that we are not claiming to know with certainty the nature of women's role and man's role and the nature of culture. You are also saying that, for example, the authentic expressions of sexuality and culture and gender that arise when we say we're not going to pretend we know with certainty, even if you don't know with certainty, some kind of natural, organic gender roles, healthy gender roles, are able to breathe and flourish, and people can get accustomed and used to these roles. And they're not being forced into them, but they authentically arise as the norm. Now,
they arise through hierarchy. They are forced on people. What are you fucking talking about?
Americans take a step farther and they say,
like that. You have to imagine like a culture in a vacuum with you know, hierarchy not affecting that, right? In order to get the organically arising. That, I mean, like, yeah, maybe with no hierarchy they would organically arise, but we don't have that situation, right? And I don't think Haas is proposing that situation.
Look at all of these particular...
I think that there's something about the conservative mind that necessitates hierarchy.
Determinate expressions of culture and gender and tradition. These are the...
Haas's role in nature isn't to eat microphones on stream, and still he does it. Role is what you choose to do.
Result of oppression, and this is a hidden oppression. And you ask them, well, is it a political oppression, as in people are being forced politically? Oh, no, it's not a political...
It feels organic for people who aren't questioning hierarchy. Yeah, they see hierarchy as natural. That's the thing. Yeah, that the hierarchy is organically arising too. And it's like, okay, so is might makes right organically arising? I mean, like,
political oppression, it's a form of cultural...
I mean, you could even say that capitalism is, or if you really wanted to fucking get down to another kind of conservative viewpoint, you could say capitalism is naturally arising.
Oppression. Now here...
You could say, you could even claim that it was the codification of some kind of natural law.
Ladies and gentlemen, is the genesis and the origin of the American New Left and the counterculture. During the counterculture, there arose this idea that even beyond the modern bourgeois democratic equality, there's this hidden system of control and oppression that permeates private life, and that we must go
social fucking hierarchy.
Go out of our way to shatter the norms and break the ceilings and completely overturn the traditions, and so on, right? This is what is complete. This is where the so-called linear progress that the leftists implicitly believe in, this is where communist states began to...
I love how they think we all love Foucault.
...draw their line when it comes to embracing the progressive role of bourgeois democracy. They drew their line precisely here. The communist states responded to this by saying, no, that's not true. We may not impose...
The Frankfurt School, where we go! Conservatism! It's organically arising from Haas's chat. Fucking Frankfurt School, like, grievance conservatism is organically arising.
And make assumptions about the...
Now comes the Moppenite talking point of the synthetic love.
Nature of gender and culture from the perspective of the state, but we're not going to assume that all of our natural human realities are the result of some kind of hidden oppression and therefore try to overturn them or disturb them. So during the 60s and 70s, the communist states increasingly started to crack down. This actually let me actually really contextualize this historically. It's really after World War II, during the Stalin era after World War II, that you start to see the USSR crack down on jazz music and crack down on American foreign cultural influences. And
we gotta keep that jazz music out of there, right?
You had a newfound with the Zdanovchina, right? The leader of culture in the USSR, who was Zdanov. He emphasized the decadent nature of bourgeois society and bourgeois culture and completely...
Does Haas hate jazz?
Strove to root out these...
I mean, I guess you can sort of fold this into communism a little bit more easily, given the gentrification that jazz has undergone in American society. The fact that if you try to go to a jazz club now, you're going to end up like paying a hefty cover fee, right? It's very much it's very much become it's like a sophisticated bourgeois pursuit. But yeah, obviously jazz didn't come from rich white people. Jazz came from organically arose from, oh my god, to even like describe a confluence of blues with jazz is complicated.
Foreign influences from Soviet culture and from Soviet society. They said, we look at what's going on.
I wonder if Haas's brain would explode if he learned that the Frankfurt School guys supported traditional culture over popular culture.
With America and its so-called progress, and we will not have any of it here. After Stalin died, Khrushchev and his clique embarked on some kind of
jazz was normalized in the USSR by the 1960s.
Liberalization and Americanization, right? So there was a little bit of lax when it comes to that. But ultimately, this was not because of the progressive movement of time or because communism was progressive in the American sense. It was because after the death of Stalin, you had a period of liberalization and an openness to American culture. So what does it actually mean to be a conservatism? Communist conservatism...
What does it mean to be a conservatism?
Mostly rears its head in...
based. Adorno hated jazz. Adorno of the Frankfurt School thought it was a distraction from the class struggle.
Zdanovщина in the 40s and 50s. And it was primarily a response to American liberal cultural universalism. This is where communists thoroughly planted their feet in the ground and said, actually, we are...
Is it gross to think that Haas is hot? No. It's like, no.
Conservatives in a fundamental sense. In a more fundamental sense, and in a way that is reconciled with modernity. Communists are conservatives because we do want to preserve the tradition.
Was into 12 tone. Oh my god, he was into like Schoenberg. Oh my god. Wait, yeah, right. Schoenberg, like that kind of stuff. What is that called? Oh my god, I'm trying to remember. Like the larger movement that is like, listen, Chad, we're talking about some music here that like was kind of thought to be the next step in classical music and has been popularly rejected, although theoretically interesting. It's not something that really has a place in people's hearts. It didn't work.
Cultures and the heritage of our national histories and our civilization.
So to be true to this form, I guess there's derivations of this, but the original idea was that like there's 12 tones, like, and you want to play through those tones, like in a seemingly random I don't know, it's weird stuff, chat. It's weird stuff.
In our culture,
like 12 so what I'm talking about is like on the piano, like C to C, you've got like 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 white notes, and then you got 1 2 3 4 5 black notes, right? So those are 12 tones, right, all in all. And the idea was that like they would you wouldn't repeat a tone until you had cycled through every tone.
We don't want to liquidate these things and embrace American universal cosmopolitanism.
It's only theoretically harmonic.
And American culture and jazz.
Adorno was a weirdo anyways.
Kind of we do believe in a material humanity. Now, the reason they're not reactionaries is because they say this and also implying that they're reconciled with the fact that modernity itself is part of this continuity. The reason, this is the significance of Stalinism that's important.
Smash jazz? What the fuck?
To understand here. Stalinism is a form of kind of conservative.
Chat, if you are literate of Twitch emotes, you understand how Trihex's emote has been used, right? What is that person trying to say? Any Twitch people in here? I'm very sus of that last comment. I'm very sus of that last comment.
Of Russian civilization. But the real significance here is it's basically saying...
Jazz is cool, what the hell? Hegel Chuck with the bass take.
This modernity is part of the history of the Russian...
All the scenes in the 2001 with the monolith are two choirs singing... Really? Okay, with the monolith. Okay. Like that one that's like dung 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 dung, that thing. Okay, so I mean, I guess I don't mind that so much. I would just hate it if all music was like that. A lot of people sex people that they hate. Yeah. No, dude, listen. Like I firmly believe that a big component of my own right-wing hate following is a thirst following. Like, right? There's like a thing there. There's like a thing there.
Civilization. It's part of our history. It's just kind of modernity of technological.
It's not completely universal, but it's present like more than you would think it is. Like the more of my right-wing haters are like classifiable under the rubric of thirst haters than you would expect, right?
Modernity and change in the nature of gender roles where women are
not the main theme, but that's normal.
Educated, and they have a choice, right? And they can enter the workplace and so on and so on. This is part of our culture, part of our heritage.
Not that thing, that's Strauss. Oh, that is, yeah, you're right. That is oh god, fanfare for the common man or something.
This is the communist view.
Is that what
it's always been a straw man that conservatism was anti-modern. Conservatism was not anti-modern. Conservatism was merely a form of critique against the hyper-idealist rationalism of the European Enlightenment, which is a criticism shared by Marx. The German idealism was
also that's the piece. Okay.
Fundamentally conservative in nature. In relation,
Behind the Bastard has shown some of the histories. Monsters were strangely at one point. Monsters were strangely hot at one point.
To European rationalism and the Enlightenment. And that is Marx's background. That's where Marx emerged from. Marx was himself fundamentally conservative in relation to the universalism of the bourgeois state. Marx pointed out how the bourgeois state attempts to impose an ideal of humanity upon the real and material humanity. It doesn't acknowledge that there's this antecedence of our material being that is not always already consolidated in the rational bourgeois and abstract state.
He's acting like that there's no accounting for that in like this is what he's just talking about, like the division between the rational and I guess Foucault would say, what is Foucault is like the unrational, right? It's not irrational but unrational is Foucault's, like, I mean, yeah, though this is definitely something that like you don't have to be a conservative theorist to take in account. Like anyone who's like wrestled with Nietzsche has dealt with this question, right?
So Marx was also a conservative in a fundamental sense. Conservatism doesn't mean you hate gay people and you want to criminalize homosexuality and you're necessarily against abortion. Conservatism merely is
Jimmy Dore is a mega Chad. Okay.
Assertion that there is a fundamental material object and material being, human material being, that exists independently and in a way that is antecedent to our individual arbitrary wants, wills, and elevated sense of rationalism in relation to the world. Conservatism basically means you recognize there are things about our humanity, about our culture, about our nations, and about our heritage which cannot be liquidated. Now, can they change? Yes, they do change, but they change at a scale that is different than the impassioned crusader-like mentality of these leftist fanatical individuals who want to of the counterculture, who want to overturn all culture and overthrow.
So there it is. If you like traditional fucking Ward Cleaver bullshit, you know what I mean? If you think this is this is the same DNA as the American conservative movement, I will point out, right? This has gotten to the same point of like MAGA support, right? And it comes from the same point. It comes from the same departure point of hippie punching, right? It's the same shit. It's just fucking boring ass, dumbass conservatism, and it's a kind of conservatism that even a lot of conservatives eschew, right? There's a lot of conservatives that are like trying to incorporate, more of an egalitarian like aesthetic into their conservatism or like retcon their views to like include that, right? It's just this is reactionary bullshit is what this is. This is reactionary social bullshit marketed to fragile men that might not have had a lot of sexual experience yet.
Oh, the systems of hierarchy and patriarchy and oppression implicitly
that might not know how many holes a woman has.
The communist attitude to culture is not that of the American.
How fucking long is this? I swear to God, this was only 30 minutes. This feels like we've been at this for.
Is recognizing a material, fundamental material reality underlying culture. Culture is a kind of superstructure to the fundamental base of, for example, the relations of production. Not only the relations of the production of economic objects, but also
are we fighting for your rights in the wrong way again? Oh my God.
Of the family. Now, Engels does talk about how the family is not something immutable. He talks about how, yeah, the bourgeois family has not existed for all eternity. But Engels wasn't saying that therefore that means families aren't real and that we can just go about voluntarily experimenting with new forms of the family to... No, there is an organic, almost natural evolution of families that happens at a scale very different from the individual intellectual rational insight into the fact that they're not immutable. Just because you're saying this form of the family hasn't always existed and may very well change in the future doesn't actually mean that you could go about treating it as though it's not real. It's still real. Even if, just because it's not eternal, doesn't mean it's not real. Doesn't mean it's not a specific and determinate reconciliation of contradictions as they exist today. So this is why I talk about Heidegger and stress that kind of stuff. All it means basically is that there are unconscious material realities that exist independently and prior to the rational and conscious articulation of them. That's all I've ever said. And it's pretty much the same thing Marx said. It's just that Marxists in the West seem to have forgotten that, especially with Lukácsian notions of self-consciousness and so on, which, you know, I don't want to bore you to death upon and waste too much time.
Well, wait. It feels like Haas doesn't believe in the individual, which is funny because in a way I don't believe in the individual either, in that I don't believe that individuals are as separate as sort of capitalist realism treats us. We're not, like, you know, like I've got another like take on that, but in terms of autonomy, in terms of an individual as an agent of rational thought, I'm on board for that, and I don't really see what the problem is. I feel like Haas's thinking is conservative in that it's fundamentally hierarchical. It fundamentally reinforces the hierarchy based on power. It fundamentally reinforces the dominance paradigm.
Talking about.
He doesn't want to bore us to death. Yeah, right?
We have to face this fundamental question, right? Is it that the cultural changes that have occurred since the counterculture and since the New Left, is this a result of some kind of objective historical progress? Or is it the result of a complete bourgeois...
Now, here's what's really funny. Haas is in favor of change or progress when it is organically arising, right? What is it about the 60s that he doesn't think was organic, right? The people in the 60s had certain thoughts in reaction to the history that had preceded them. Like, where is the interference? Where is the inorganic being introduced, right? Where is the where's the intervention that Haas is seeing? What is the departure from the movement of the adaptation of, you know, culture and society before that, right? I don't really see what he sees as being different, like, right? This is not deductive. This is starting off from the premise that this is starting off from the premise that something bad has happened to society, right? That there's a crisis, that shit's not working, that shit's like on, and like we watched that video by St. Andrewism the other day about right-wing authoritarianism, right? Not right-wing in the terms of just like the ideological, but, you know, God, not Horkheimer, fucking, what was the theorist? What was the dude's name? I'm trying to remember the guy's name, but there's a theorist that St. Andrewism was talking about who came up with the concept that, like, right-wing basically was talking about authoritarianism, and right-wing has a slightly different meaning, right? In this sense. But yeah, this is definitely basically it's a personality type, right-wing authoritarian, right? He had two models of people who participate in what we'd call, like, you know, right-wing extremism, and that was the right-wing authoritarian personality, that is the submissive personality that wants to follow authority. And then we have the dominant, God, I'm trying to remember what it was called, the dominant person archetype, basically. And this is a person who wants to lead such a movement. This is so you got followers, and you got people who want to be the boss of those followers. Tyrants. You got petty fucking tyrants looking for people to exploit. And I kind of think that's along the line. They were talking about the way that if you ask these right-wing authoritarians questions like, do you think that society's stable? Do you think that things are okay? Do you think that they'll always be predicting a crisis. They'll always be predicting, like, you know, it's falling apart, it's not stable, things have gone badly, something bad has happened, and we got to fix it. We got to get back to whatever the normal is, right? And it's this kind of thing. It's this kind of idea that, like, you know, there's just something about, like, the cultural shifts that have happened that you don't like, and you work backwards from that to justify, like, you know, what's wrong with it, and imagine some kind of an interference by, I don't even know what Haas is proposing interfered. I don't know what Haas's distinction is between the cultural change that happened prior to the 60s and the cultural change that happened during and after the 60s, right? In a lot of ways, the movements of the 60s, like the sexual revolution, they are not finished. The sexual revolution did not complete its goals, right? The sexual revolution is kind of on pause, right? There's a lot of what was going on in the 60s got rolled back, right? A lot of, you know, in the 60s, if you went onto the street and you said after the revolution, people would not take that as it wouldn't be thought of as a figurative expression. It would be thought of as a real statement that, of course, there will be a revolution, and, you know, after that, things are going to be massively different. Those in the 60s, the new left, as Haas was saying, envisioned a lot more change than what actually happened in that time, and didn't really envision the kind of backlash maybe that took place.
Psychosis and degeneration.
Like feminism, you can look at so many movements of the 60s and 70s that didn't really complete their goals, that didn't quite get there.
The material breakdown of the capitalist mode of production. My view is the communist line, which is that it's the latter. The Soviet Union, fundamentally, the communist states as a whole, whether they were considered revisionist or not, whether you're talking about Albania or China or the Eastern Bloc, all of these communist states had a vehemently opposed view to the American counterculture and the so-called cultural revolution of the United States. They were, not only were they extreme.
Yeah, good point, Sabrina. There's certain movements that were revolutionary back in the 60s and 70s that have made even a lot really pretty formal alliances with Tradcon thought, right? If you see the watch the recent Jesse Gender video about the turf to right-wing pipeline, like there is like a connection of a lot of right-wing forces to these supposedly, these movements that supposedly arose out of radical feminism.
Extremely wary and skeptical of it. They sought to purge their societies of all of its influences just because they were modern societies that had a modern, and by the way, modern doesn't mean contemporary. Modernity is referring basically to this kind of process of emergence of the capitalist mode of production and bourgeois democracy, which had occurred a few centuries ago, or 3, maybe 4 centuries ago. They were modern states. They embraced the objective and material significance of modernity, so they were not trying to roll back the wheels of time when it came to those things. But that doesn't mean that this was because of some kind of linear objective historical progress that culminates in bestiality and furries on Twitter and pedophilia and turning everyone into gray goo where nothing is real anymore and everything's just in polyamory and we're always that's not
Wait a minute, Haas. Why were you doing Caleb Maupin's voice? Why was he doing... That was Caleb Maupin's voice. Did you hear that? Why is he doing an impression of Caleb Maupin there? It culminates in furries and... Yeah, and gray goo. We're all gonna be gray goo. What the fuck, Haas?
That is not a Marxist or materialist view whatsoever, okay? So, today, to be a communist... So what does this have to do with communism?
That was a weird irrational fear was what that was, okay?
As far as what communism is about and what communism is concerned with. Now, communism is this Marxist sense of the word, the Marxist, Leninist, and so on sense of the word, shares in common with all the other socialisms and communisms in that it was attempting...
Wait. Attorney Adorno was called Teddy by his friends, so furry confirmed.
To address and give explanation to, give form to, give meaning to this common
always gotta go there to
social
denigrate
object,
us. Yeah.
right? Marx distinguished himself from the reactionary and conservative socialist of his time by recognizing that you cannot reverse or somehow dodge the impact of capitalist modernity. You have to go through it. There is an objective, real historical significance of capitalist modernity that we have to endure, we have to face, and we have to survive through. It's a challenge and test of our humanity. And Marx said this by elevating the proletariat as the privileged revolutionary class and subject of communism, because the proletariat was a class completely stripped of its traditional roots and its background. And to put it in Marx's own fucking words, it is a class that has been completely stripped of humanity and therefore represents the complete re-winning of humanity back. Marx was elevating the proletariat as the privileged subject because he was basically telling the conservatives and reactionaries of his time, guys, look upon the proletariat.
Should I feel bad that I have no clue what the hell he's talking about? I mean, this is like, okay, so he started off, do you remember that a few months ago there was like a furry who had a video, and the video starts off with not to be racist but, right? And you know it's gonna be a good video when it starts off with not to be racist but, right? So I think his name was like Achilles Argyle or something like that, and it was the weirdest video in the world. It was like not to be racist but literally racism, right? That was the point, right? That's what Haas is doing, like not to be, you know, anti-LGBTQIA but, you know, like, yeah, not to be reactionary, but like, right, it's like that same thing. All that's left to happen is for Haas to put his feet up on the table and for the stink lines, the green miasma to emanate from his feet, showing us that his feet really smell bad. And then we'd have basically Achilles Argyle, but the fake ML version of that.
Look upon this class that has been so thoroughly stripped of its humanity. Can you survive this class? Can you address this class? Can you make sense of this class? Marx was basically saying we need to have...
What's weird is, don't ghosts have hooves? Like, I just don't understand why the feet.
Faith in this class, because if we don't have faith in this proletarian class, we cannot have faith in reacquiring our sense of humanity after this process of capitalist modernity. Now, the Soviet Union and the communist states did reconcile themselves with capitalist modernity by pursuing an alternative form of modernity and a different path of modernity. A form of modernity which, while being destructive and apocalyptic in a sense, didn't lead to the wholesale liquidation and destruction of the humanity, culture, civilization, and
I think Haas's problem is that he confuses hierarchy with humanity.
National realities of its constituent, of the peoples that were victim to this modernity. It was reconciling this modernity. It sublated this modernity into a new type.
It's like Shai Halud won over Shaitan.
Okay.
Oh shit, that video's over. Okay. Oh my god, what is that? I have no idea what that... Interesting. Okay, so what else do we have today? We're gonna take a look at Peter Coffin and Miss ACD. Surprise, we love America. Okay, let's find this.
Hey, thanks for joining us for Pact. I'm the Peter Coffin, the lovely Miss Astronaut Cowboy Doctor. Here is the ACD. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe.
I never knew that's what that stood for.
Subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or your favorite podcast service. Also, leave us a glowing review on Audible and Apple Podcasts. The reviews people have been leaving there have been very good. We thank you very much for that. If you haven't, now's the time.
So chat, if you don't know, these two have done content on me. Like, I've been on this podcast. They have covered one of my videos. It was actually a video about Haas, ironically enough, right? That they covered and they critiqued. They're like, not to be mean to her or anything. I don't know. You know, it's just fucking, it was super meaty about ours, though. Because, like, Peter Coffin retweeted a clip of me and just sent it wild. Like, I got over 10,000 views in the Nazbol vortex. I got seen by like 10,000 Nazbols on Twitter thanks to this asshole. So yeah, no longer a blue-haired SJW. And from what I heard, pronouns no longer in bio. I don't know what the story is with that, but
Starman.
I guess that Coffin is a beta to Haas. That Coffin is, that's Coffin submitting to Haas today without auto-tune. Yeah, right.
Yes. We need to work that shit into this.
I can't believe we haven't already.
Help us keep the lights on by becoming a patron at patreon.com/pactpod. That's PACDPOD. Your monthly support.
But yeah, the only reason I didn't put that video out, in fact, that might be something good. Hey, members, I bet that's something. So I didn't put that video out because the first Peter Coffin video I did not do well. Nobody cared about Peter Coffin. Nobody wanted to see Peter Coffin, right? Like, I talked about how Peter Coffin clipped me. I talked about how, you know, the thing that went on Twitter, and nobody gave a fuck. So I didn't put out the second one, but I'm thinking that this might be a good thing for some members-only content, some Patreon content, right?
Gets you into the Discord server, gets you exclusive
you hope
content,
that, yeah,
and you see some content before
you
everyone
hope
else.
That they won't turn into a drone strike.
Fantastic Pact merch available as well.
Can they
Finally,
kick it?
tell your friends.
Yes, they can.
We rely so big on word of mouth.
Bigly on
we
word of mouth.
stream 7 p.m. Eastern on Saturdays. Thank you very much for tuning in. So, should we love America or should we hate America? It's important to know whether or not you are to look.
Aren't feelings like love and hate feelings that are organically arising? Like the proposition of like ought. Yeah, what is that? This kind of statement? An ought statement is called what would Destiny say? What was the word for this? Like an ought statement is a. Oh, I can't remember the fucking word for it, but right, it's like I kind of think that love and hate are. I don't know if you can control those, like, right? Can you tell yourself not, like, let's say you don't love your parents. Can you make yourself love your parents? Let's say you do love your parents, can you make yourself not love your parents? Like, right?
Out upon
it kind of just happens, right?
And say, wow, you're the same goddamn thing as the U.S. state. I've seen this argument play out a few times. It's not necessarily a new one. However, the current iteration happened when Jackson Hinkle, who is a very, let's say, well-researched person who spent time
fucking Nazbol
debunking the Syrian bullshit.
Yeah, and then like a few days ago,
some gray zone influence maybe.
It came out to be like bullshit.
Yeah, the BBC.
Yeah.
The BBC had to cave on it. In all seriousness, like, he doesn't go out and just say shit. So Jackson Hinkle tweeted, "I'm a Marxist-Leninist. I'm an anti-imperialist." And then he rounded it out by saying, "I'm an American patriot." Yes. Everybody.
Also, chat, did Miss ACD get something on her shirt, or is that like a map of something?
Turned into Darth Vader at the end of Revenge of the Sith. This made Twitter mad. As, you know, saying basically anything where that could make Marxism, Leninism,
Hulk Hogan,
appear vaguely relatable to a normal person tends to.
Here's like a really critical concern that like gives away the game for people.
So here's the thing, okay? Patriotism belies a lack of intellectual curiosity. To love a thing like a state is like loving a sports team. And that's fine with a sports team. Like, if you love the Houston Astros, I'm not going to tell you not to love the Houston Astros. If you love the Boston Red Sox, I'm not going to tell you not to love the Boston Red Sox. But you know that that's not an intellectual thing where you're like, oh, I went through all the Major League Baseball teams, no comment check, and I determined that the Boston Red Sox are the best team, and I must love them. Like, that is not, you know that that's not an objective thing. However, with country, it becomes de facto that. It becomes moral logic, right? And you, so what Coffin has said, and it's problematic. If you are dealing with moral fucking logic, you're gonna fuck up all over the place. You can't work with that. You can't derive anything meaningful from that, right? If you start off with we gotta make the U.S. good, then you're doomed. You're fucking doomed. And it's a dumb thing. It's something that like we think with enough reflection, with enough thought that people get over. It's an immature thought form, basically. You know, it is. It's a very, yeah, that's the best way to describe it. It's an immature thought form to reduce something down to like love and hate of the country, right? So now a lot of conservative Americans have that. A lot of not conservative Americans have that, right? And what Coffin is saying is that there's no hopes in reaching these people and getting like a more thoughtful analysis out of them, right? You just got to go along with their stupidity. Or indulge their stupidity to like, I honestly think that this is an elitist like form of you know, communism, right? That's being practiced in a way because it like presupposes that the ignorance of a lot of people is an ignorance that's their natural, that arises naturally, right? Rather than something that's been enforced on us by an anti-intellectual culture, especially on the right, by a culture that's hostile to intellectualism, by a culture that takes Brady Smurf and kicks him out of the fucking Smurf village, right? Because he's too damn smart. We can't stand that. We gotta kick that smart asshole the fuck out, right? That dumb climate scientist telling me that I can't run my lawnmower in the summer? What the fuck?
They're advocating for
like they basically decided that, like, because I don't think that they believe this stuff. I don't think that they actually, that Peter Coffin is like, oh yes, the United States is a good in and of its own, right? I don't think that Miss ACD thinks, you know, anything like that, right? But oh my God, what are we doing? That Booksmart's background. We got Booksmart's background. Yay! I love that. That's what it rolled over to, right? So Coffin and ACD don't believe this shit. What does that mean? That means that they think they can lead MAGAs around by the nose just like Donald Trump can. That means that they're looking down at these people. So not only are you going after like reactionary people and trying to pull them onto the left in order to maybe make yourself look less reactionary, but you're looking down on them. Your critique of the liberal establishment is that it looks down on them. You're doing the same fucking thing. So there's enough hypocrisy to go around here.
Marginalized of the American
has never Taylism has never achieved
like,
anything worthwhile.
To appeal to a normal person. For some reason, they think that normal person just means white people, and that like there aren't people of color who are patriotic. I don't know if we have to bring out the voting statistics.
I would say that it's a lot easier to be unquestioningly in support of the United States as a good in and of its own, as a privileged person, as a white person, as a male person, right? The more privilege you have, the easier that is to like hold in your mind as being legitimate, right? The more like intersections of oppression you experience, i.e. being black, i.e. being a woman, i.e. being gay, i.e. being trans, right? The more that whole premise is going to be ridiculous because you've lived in the United States and you know it's not good. You've felt how evil the United States can be. And that you know that anybody who unquestioningly supports this, you know, I don't know if you want to call it a culture. I don't know if you want to call it a zeitgeist or whatever the hell you want to call it. Like, you know, whoever unquestioningly supports this, like, American exceptional, they're talking about American exceptionalism. When you talk about American patriots, the patriotism that most Americans have, that is American exceptionalism. In foreign policy, they don't accept that, right? But somehow they can't imagine the masses, who they look down on, as being above that, as ever rising above that stage, right? It's elitist.
But most
I'm gonna be right back, Chad. I gotta get a drink.
Everyone in the United States are not people who hold settlers real tight and just put it up their butt. That's not most people of color in the United States.
I was actually going to say, Settlers makes the argument that white people in America are actually the labor aristocracy and not the proletariat. Like, the real proletariat in America is people of color, which, no. Like, Franz Fanon, who wrote Black Skin, White Masks, for instance, has said that Appalachia was an oppressed nation.
Yeah.
Before we get into, like, our arguments, we do want to run over some of the actual response to Jackson Hinkle's tweet.
Yeah.
Probably one of the biggest ones was this picture of Batman slapping Robin, where Robin is saying, I'm a Marxist-Leninist, I'm an anti-imperialist, I'm an American patriot. Batman slapping him and says, that is social chauvinism. You're an opportunist. Lenin hates.
Did she really say, like, most black people don't hold settlers really tight and put it up their butt?
Hates you. First off, Lenin did write at length about social chauvinism. What social chauvinism is when you support the bourgeois state of your nation over the international proletariat, which, to be clear, Jackson Hinkle is not arguing for, and neither are we. In fact...
No, but what you're trying to harness is that same American exceptionalist outlook that underlies the MAGA movement. You're trying to get those people into your movement. You're trying to speak to those people. And so what you're getting, the movement you're creating, unless you have a plan to deprogram them from this, is going to be an American exceptionalist movement. Listen, Peter, I don't know if you realize this, all right? But you and I, you know, maybe you to a greater extent and me to a lesser extent because I'm a smaller creator, we pull people in certain directions, right? Our discourse, you know, affects people. If I say something and it sounds like bullshit, it's going to drive people away. If I say something that sounds based, it's going to pull people in, right? So in what you're doing is you're pulling people in a direction, right? That you are like, okay, I want you to go right here, right? And what the problem is you're taking them right by fascism. You're taking them right by National Bolshevism, right? And you're counting on the fact that they're not going to see that exit and be like, oh, hey, this looks good. There's a Denny's here. Let's go to the Denny's. There's a Denny's here. Let's stop here. You want them to come along to, like, you know, Chicago, Peter, but they might get off at Springfield, all right? And if they get off at Springfield, you have created a fascist movement. Through no intent of your own. I'm not calling you a fascist. I'm not calling you a Nazgul. I'm not doing anything like that. But this is the concept of the Nazgul vortex. You're taking them too fucking close to the vortex, Peter. And you've got to realize that shit has power. That those are not just historical forces that are dead. Those are not dead cells. That is a live fucking virus, Coffin. And that is nothing to fuck around with. And you people are cravenly fucking around with that. You people are trying to exploit that. You people are very much going with the perverse incentives of the platform that you always rail against other creators. BreadTube does that. No, you do that. You're doing that shit right now. This is dangerous rhetoric, okay? This is irresponsible rhetoric. And this is coming from an arrogant fucking asshole that thinks that they can, like, they're charismatic enough to pull people to the exact spot that they want them to get. That is not right, Coffin. This is wrong on so many levels, and it pisses me off, okay?
We're making a hard distinction between the American people and the U.S. state, which is the prime exerciser of U.S. imperialism.
We want to differentiate between nationalism and patriotism, though.
Not nationalism. This is not a nationalism
You
thing.
don't have to pay.
Okay, cool. Well, on the way in, you can explain that to the MAGAs that are obsessed with nationalism.
Service to nationalism. Nationalism of the U.S. is not good in any way because we are the imperial court. Nationalism for oppressed nations and colonies.
The Duke is proud. Oh, thank you, Duke.
The United States.
Thank you.
That is something that I think criticism is
absolutely
definitely necessitated. And opponents of what Jackson Hinkle said are so insistent on making it that he's a social chauvinist or that he's pro-imperial core or that he's pro-US state when like this is something that anybody supporting Jackson Hinkle's argument reiterates over and over. And I don't know exactly what to make of that. Why are the opponents...
Because the demographic that you're seeking is going to interpret the words you say as exactly that. And you don't have it within you to convince them otherwise. That's why, my dear. That's why.
Insistent on conflating that with nationalism or racism.
It doesn't have to be fucking conflated. It is conflated in the minds of the American people. It isn't conflated in the minds of the quote-unquote proletariat demographic that you're reaching out to. And might I remind you that the great percentage of the proletariat are actually not conservative, are actually not American exceptionalists, right? Because being, working class is an intersection of oppression, and having seen the United States from that vantage point, there is, sometimes maybe more of a reticence to see the problems with it, rather than to practice these unquestioning patriotism,
primacy or whatever. And one reasonable thing that I might be able to think of, people of color or people with indigenous roots might think of that, and it's like at first like maybe their visceral reaction is going to be like ugh, and they're going to like think about the history of the state automatically, but how that's remediated as you say, oh well, the US state and its history are different than the American people, I can support the American people, and then it's over. And then it's just like, why are people more interested in moralizing and bad faith framing of people who have the same goals ostensibly that you have? Like, why would you be more focused on making that person look like shit when they're one of the few communists who are like advocating for your material interests? I don't understand that.
Yes, that's right, because you can't advocate for material interest and intersectionality at the same time.
I'll tell you exactly what it is.
Go.
The rally to restore sanity. Jon Stewart and Colbert's rally.
Yeah.
This is where so many of the communists of today come from. They grow out of the Obama liberalism and a discontent with where it went. They still see American patriotism as, oh my God, freedom fries. Oh my God, Muslims are bad. Like,
right. I think that it is very important.
Have they even tried to describe what American patriotism, like, separate to the American exceptionalist viewpoint it is, right? Like, I get that they're not imperialist, but what they don't realize is that they are virtue signaling imperialism. And what I mean by that is that, like, it will be taken by their target audience as such. You haven't really, I mean, you put some nuance into this, but Peter, like, the MAGA audience didn't get to this part, okay? All they saw was Jackson's tweet. They don't go deeper. They can't go deeper. They can't engage with your, material. Like, that they have been inculcated with a kind of anti-intellectualism that it itself is resistant to nuance, and it's useful to those who harness it because they can move that mass with slogans, with framing, with language, rather than having to elucidate an actual viewpoint and talk about it rationally.
A diversity of backgrounds and their opinions on patriotism. I do think that when people ask questions like, what do black people think about this?
Anyone who's an imperialist goes nuts when they see that stuff.
One, it monoliths groups of marginalized population in a way that is fetishy and gross. And two, it centers standpoint theory in a way that I think is not relevant to a scientific socialist project. I realize that our scientific observations are informed by our experiences, but I don't use anecdotal experience to inform my criticism on structural problems or communist projects.
Do you not realize that if you don't take into account standpoint, that what you're going to end up with is looking at something from the standpoint of the established, like that's the default state, right? Is
and nobody else should either.
Agreed. I want to go ahead and say that arguments against scientific socialism that say, but that dismisses the struggles of native and indigenous people, that is a soft, noble, savage trope. This is the reason why I say that. I do not like seeing people say, oh, well, the natives don't believe in science, basically.
Right.
And I'm sorry, but no. Saying like native people don't believe in science is racist.
How about this? Science hasn't incorporated enough perspectives to actually be scientific. Too much of science is done from the standpoint of the default person, right? And as such, it's incomplete. So it's not that the other understandings of science are primitivistic or anything like that. It's more that science has gate-kept these people out of it, right?
People also believe in history and do analysis of conditions. They may not have called it that centuries ago, but the fact is people learn and develop. Socialism. Things progress, and to fetishize like native people as not doing that, as like returning to monkey, that is, I think that is ultimately fetishizing.
I feel like Coffin's skipping over a lot of their thought process in there that might be due to the editing that got done to this video, or maybe just stuff that they talk about on a on a daily basis, like, right, that Coffin's not really explaining here. But like, yeah, I feel like I really don't understand the thought process by which you arrive at that, Peter.
Noble savage trope, and I don't like that.
The struggle is different for indigenous peoples in the same way that the struggle towards a
this is Coffin. Yeah, wait.
Socialist
this is Peter
project
Coffin. True.
Is different for any given society based off of their historical conditions and the relationship of that people to those historical conditions. There isn't some inherent, biologically baked in difference. There are historical differences in how the struggle of indigenous people and how the struggle of, I guess, settler proles. There are differences based off of their historical relationships to their environment. And that's what scientific socialism is.
Yeah. So, and that's why there will be a socialism with American characteristics as opposed to...
Right. That struggle is different. The struggle of settler proles is not incompatible, but it's a different relationship to the historical conditions of their time and how they've moved dialectically up to this point where they evolved. That's how it's different in China. That's how it's different or was different in the USSR. That's how it was different and is different in different areas of Africa. Like, yes, of course the struggle is different because they have different relationships and they have different historical conditions and different relationships to them based off of the evolution of their history. That's not controversial.
Anyway, here's a couple of more reactions. This is from our favorite Zoe Baker. Socialism will be based on internationalism and oppose patriotism, or it will not be socialist at all. As a group of Belgian workers wrote in 1836, there is no other fatherland but the world. Or as Italian anarchist Pietro Gori sung, the whole world is our country.
I love that shit. The whole world is our country, as it implies that we can be a communist globe tomorrow.
And they don't care.
The patriotism of nations bringing forth socialist projects are part of the internationalist project.
Absolutely.
Patriotism isn't being opposed to other lands. Like, it's people who can't think dialectically.
Some more reactions. Socialism with
America's MLs are a strange specimen. Yeah, just try telling them that, though. They think that they think that they're more like the rest of the world's communists, right? They think that we're the non-ML leftists are the weird ones. Zoe never said tomorrow. Yeah, that's right. They're reading a lot into Zoe's statement that's not there.
Many on the left have a cast.
No. Wrong video. Okay, here we go.
American patriot characteristics, which is a phrase that no person alive has said.
Yeah.
Socialism with American patriot characteristics is just the Nordic model, where racism is still rampant, but hey, free healthcare.
That one's particularly funny because that's somebody that doesn't understand that.
See, but it's true though. It's true. If you have this like ideal of basically not recognizing how power dynamics over history have affected people's material conditions, and you try to treat the material conditions of different people as if they're equal, then you're going to run into that. You're going to create that. You're going to create a kind of a two-tiered system, or you're going to really maintain the two-tiered system that we have. So, your whole fetish about calling us the ones that want to hold something over from liberalism, I feel like you want to hold over the race relations of liberalism, right?
Like, socialism is completely, because of the international proletariat and its interest, opposed to the Nordic model entirely.
Yeah, show me a Marxist-Leninist that's like all about the Nordic model.
Fuck yeah, Denmark.
Yeah. You're not...
It's not that you have to, like, again, you're like confusing this like weird kind of like raw, like the what is that, virtue ethics, where you're like, yay such and such, yay, like, you're confusing yay Scandinavian model for a philosophy that puts you in a way close to the Scandinavian model, in that like there's more equality, but there's more equality across class, but there's you maintain other hierarchies. I used to be an ML, but in America I simply think it wouldn't work.
First thing that a Marxist-Leninist will say in praising the welfare systems of like northern Western Europe is, yes, this might be good for the people in the meantime in those particular countries, but it is on the backbone of the international proletariat and the global south and indigenous people who are colonized.
Exactly.
We don't support that. That's not an end goal to a project.
Some more reaction.
Again, you don't have to support it to unwittingly stumble into it, right? And that's the problem with I just feel like they're not really thinking about how rhetoric works, how rhetoric moves people, right? And that you're not pulling people, to the exact place that you want them. You're pulling people, in the direction that you want, right?
What purpose does...
And if that direction is right by the Nazgul vortex, well, you've just created Nazguls. Good job.
Orienting our communism...
Do you want Nazguls? Because this is how we get Nazguls.
...around being proud to be part of the United States, sir. Which is, again, not what anyone is advocating for.
Yeah, being an American patriot does not.
They don't support welfare for the mentally ill or disabled. The thing is, the person said it is like people saying yeah to the Scandinavian model.
Necessitate love for the state. In fact, I think that it necessitates the opposite. If you love the American working class, you hate the historical legacy of the state and what the state is continuously doing. And even not only black and indigenous comrades, the white workers as well. Mm-hmm. If you love America and you're an American patriot, you should have the utmost disdain for the state because of its history, and because of its current operation.
If you say you love America, that means you love the American empire and its imperialist history. They are completely, absolutely inseparable.
That's the most blatantly incorrect one, and goes back to what I was saying about how if you love the American people, you by necessity have to hate everything that the American state has done. Essentially everything. A collective...
So wait, are they saying that patriotism is loving the American people? Because, like, loving the people around you, that's just solidarity. Like, right? That's not patriotism. If it's about the people, then say it's about the people. You're saying it's about America. What does that fucking mean to you, right? What does that mean to most people? Like, how many people are going to accept your nuanced little analysis? Like, no, when I say America, I mean actually that, right? Like, when you're virtue signaling towards something that you say you're not representing. And yet, you don't seem to understand that that is how it's being understood.
For your fellow person living in your land. There is nothing wrong with that, and there is something facilitatory about that. There's something that underpins a movement to that, in contribution to other patriotic movements that combined comprise the international proletariat supporting one another. What is so fucking bad about that? And how can people not separate that from the actions of a capitalist bourgeois state? Of course fucking communists don't support that.
So let's maybe start with Mao.
Okay.
What Mao has to say about patriotism and internationalism.
Okay, go for it.
Can a communist who is an internationalist at the same time be a patriot? We hold that he not only can be, but must be. The specific content of patriotism.
Also, I think patriotism probably meant a different thing to Mao, right? Like in the context of the Soviet Union, patriotism meant, you know, the right would have like brought to mind the Great Patriotic War. In the concept, I mean, I'm not 100% on this, but I would think that like Mao's patriotism had more to do with opposing external influences on China, right?
Is determined by historical conditions. There is the patriotism of the
like opposing the Japanese, you know, forces and opposing the, you know, the European forces before that, and you know, like right, that isn't that what Mao would have been talking about? How are these people Maoists, considering America is an industrialized country?
Japanese aggressors and of Hitler, and there is our patriotism.
They think Haas exists? Is this two Haas theory?
Must resolutely oppose the patriotism of the Japanese aggressors and of Hitler. The communists of Japan and Germany are defeatists with regard to the wars being waged by their countries. To bring about the defeat of the Japanese aggressors and of Hitler by every possible means is in the interests of the Japanese and the German people, and the more complete the defeat, the better. For the wars launched by the Japanese aggressors and Hitler are harming the people at home as well as the people of the world. China's case, however, is different because she is the victim of aggression. Chinese communists must therefore combine patriotism with internationalism. We are at once internationalists and patriots, and our slogan is fight to defend the motherland against the aggressors. For us, defeatism is a crime, and to strive for victory in the war of resistance is an inescapable duty. For those fighting in defense of the motherland, can we defeat the aggressors and achieve national liberation? And only by...
How does this apply to the United States? Yeah, somebody brought up the, you know, difference in industrialization, right, of Mao's, the, you know, China that Mao started out with versus like the United States at present.
Achieving national liberation, will it be possible for the proletariat and other working people to achieve their own emancipation? The victory of China and the defeat of the invading imperialists will help the people of other countries. Thus, in wars of national liberation, patriotism is applied internationalism.
So this is good because even in the beginning, when talking about the patriotism of Germany and Japan, condemning that immediately, Mao separates the Japanese and German people from that patriotism.
I feel like there's something... I don't know whether it's what Mao said or how they're interpreting it, but I feel like there is something that is like aggressively prescriptivist about the way that they're looking at language. Like, this seems to presuppose that you can take an already established concept like patriotism and you're like, no, not patriotism like everyone else means. Patriotism in the narrow way that I intend it, right?
Exactly.
And talks about how...
But when Jackson Hinkle tweets, he doesn't tweet with like a big long thread explaining exactly what I mean by this is what I mean by patriotism, not this, not this, not this, but this, right? Jackson Hinkle is just like patriotism, good, right? Do you not understand how that gets taken? Do you not understand how that gets understood? You can't, like, you know, argue that language should be defined differently and then use language as if it is defined differently when, like, nobody read your shit about how it should be defined differently, because that's you're trying to intervene at a level that's not organic, ironically enough, right?
Patriotism in China, which is the victim,
that's Mao too,
oppressor imperialist nations, benefits the people.
The United States are not fighting against imperialism
of those countries, of those imperialist countries. talking about
the principle of integrating internationalism with patriotism is practiced in relations between these countries. Common interests and common ideals closely bind us. The socialist countries are states of an entirely new type in which exploiting classes has been overthrown and the working people are in power. Isn't Maoism supposed to be done in an agrarian economy? Exactly.
Chinese patriotism in this case. He doesn't talk about it so much and like talking about the patriotism of the Japanese and German people, but he does differentiate between.
So what he's saying is that the real patriots of the Japanese and the Germans would be the dissidents, right? But if you go into Japan or Germany and talk about patriotism, nobody's going to understand that. They're going to think you mean supporting the current order.
Between the patriotism of the state and the interests of the peoples of those states.
The U.S. is doing imperialism, which is not in the interest of the American people.
The defeat of the Japanese and German states, by every possible means, is in the interests of the Japanese and German people. And if you are to care about those people, you are against those states.
Right. Like bourgeois versus proletariat and patriotism being different things.
Well, let's talk about abolish the family. It's not saying abolish all familial connection. It is saying there's a specific bourgeois mode of family which is enforced upon the proletariat. And the proletariat family has actually been eroded by this. They want to take that on.
That is a perfect fucking metaphor for this.
I appreciate that.
It's not, abolition of patriotism, which is something that can be beneficial and helpful. It's abolition of state patriotism and the way that the bourgeoisie has enforced patriotism to be ramped up in service of the state.
Yeah.
Which includes, capitalism, racialized hierarchy, etc. Patriotism of the people resists that and needs to resist that. Just like adoption of whatever familial motive is beneficial for you as a proletarian family is good.
Ultimately, familial relations aren't intended to just go away. The point of abolish the family, which I don't think is a good slogan by any means because people don't understand it. Abolish the...
But people don't understand what you mean about patriotism. So how is that a good slogan?
Bourgeois family obviously didn't catch fire, though.
Yeah.
But that being said...
It's weird about these people because it's like they get the concepts that I'm talking about. They're just not applying them consistently. It's not that they don't understand the concept. It's just that they forget about it when they're dealing when it's convenient, I guess.
The idea is simply to end the bourgeois economic coercion that enforces a specific mode of family, where whatever mode you end up doing, whether it's communal, whether it's polyamory, whether it's whatever, I mean, none of these things are the revolution. But the result of removing the economic coercion gives you the ability to self-actualize in any of these different situations and develop community on your own terms. The idea is to not dictate what it looks like. To, again, go back to socialism, utopian, and scientific, to put forward a specific family is to abstract...
this feels like a mix of the super capitalism rebrand with a Mott and Bailey.
Away from reality.
Right. Right, exactly. Same with patriotism that's beneficial to the proletariat.
Another Mao quote, as for people who are politically...
My take is that Mao meant that his new patriotism would be a nation living as one, overthrowing the trappings of what patriotism used to be in favor of internationalism.
Backward, communists should not slight or despise them, but should befriend them, unite with them, convince them, and encourage them to go forward.
So this is, even if someone's patriotism sucks, you can unite with them and rechannel that into something that's beneficial for everyone, with marginalized peoples of your country.
Yeah, but you can't do that from this elitist, high horse that you two are on, right? Like, oh my god. You don't see what's wrong with this kind of, I don't know, would you call this an example of vanguardism? There's a paternalistic just dynamic here where you're really thinking of there's something manipulative about what's being said here. So basically, a nation proud of not being isolated and imperialistic.
Forefront.
I really want to just lightly touch on the Browderism.
So I don't know. I almost don't want to mess with the Mao stuff because, like, you know, the word he was using wasn't patriotism. It was probably a Chinese word, right? And there's going to be something lost in the translation there, right? This might make more sense in China in Chinese than it does, you know, in English, right? What the fuck? I'm in a Puerto Rican nationalist group, and someone thought I was some kind of Hispanic. Oh my god. Yeah, no, dude. This is the Vosh problem. This is the Vosh problem again. Not understanding, like, you know, the difference between nationalism, you know, in terms of not understanding, like, you know, that in order to get out from under colonialism, get out from under oppression, that, like, a nation, not a state, needs to be formed to oppose that, right? A nation being the, you know, group of people.
So some people have said that's Browderism, which is
this
incorrect.
Is the whole Bosch
it's not Browderism.
Argument over again.
Browder was somebody who caused a bunch of rifts in the Communist Party. William Z. Foster was ultimately
Thanks, I try to be.
Browder's enemy in the CPUSA. Anyway, Mao, the guy who we just quoted.
Wait, oh wow, this is a different day.
On patriotism.
Right? Or did she? Oh, I think she just got cold.
You know, Mao.
Yeah, Mao, that guy. I'm going to read notes that are appended to this.
I hope I don't sound too much like Haas, like trying to wriggle out of the Uyghur thing with Destiny, but...
Telegram first. Earl Browder was the General Secretary of the Communist Party of the United States of America from 1930 to 1944. During World War II, the rightist ideas in the Communist Party of the USA, of which Browder was the chief exponent, developed into an anti-Marxist revisionist capitulation line. From December 1943 onward, Browder advocated this line in a number of speeches and articles, and in April 1944 he published Tehran as his right opportunist program. Revising the basic Leninist thesis that imperialism is monopolistic, decadent, and moribund capitalism, and denying the imperialist nature of U.S. capitalism, he declared that U.S. capitalism retains some of the
they call themselves MLs, but...
characteristics of a young capitalism, and that there's a common interest between the proletariat and the big bourgeoisie of the USA. Thus, he pled for the safeguarding of the system of monopolist trusts and dreamed about saving U.S. capitalism from inevitable crisis by means of class conciliation. Basing himself on this absurd appraisal of U.S. capitalism and following a capitulationist line of class collaboration with monopoly capital, Browder in May of 1944 presided over the dissolution of the Communist Party of the USA, the Party of the U.S. Proletariat, and formed a non-party organization, the Communist Political Association of the USA. From the very beginning, Browder's wrong line met with opposition from many members of the Communist Party in the USA, with Comrade William Z. Foster at their head. Under the leadership of Comrade Foster, the Communist
More like Marxist cringiest.
Political Association in June 1945 passed a resolution denouncing Browder's line. In July, the association held a special national convention and decided on the thorough liquidation of this line and re-establishment of the Communist Party USA. Browder was expelled from the party in February of 1946 because he persisted on this stand, which was a betrayal of the proletariat, because he openly supported the imperialist policy of the Truman administration and engaged in factional activities against the party. So anyway, Mao sent a telegram to William Z. Foster. I'm not going to read the whole thing. We're glad to learn that the Special Convention of the Communist Political Association of the United States has resolved to repudiate Browder's revisionist, that is, capitulist line, and has reestablished Marxist leadership and revived the Communist Party of the United States. We hereby extend to you our warm congratulations on this great victory of the working class and the Marxist movement in the United States. Browder's whole revisionist, capitulationist line, which is fully expressed in his book, in essence reflects the influence of reactionary U.S. capitalist groups on the U.S. workers' movement. Same guy who was like, our patriotism is internationalism, perfectly capable of drawing the distinction between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie. So there's a reason why William Z. Foster wrote the book on Marxism, Leninism versus revisionism, and was also arguing for...
Okay, so here's what's funny about, like, Peter Coffin, I guess Caleb Maupin too. Yeah, you could throw them all into this. Haas, Peter Coffin, Miss ACD, right? You see this Christmas sweater, right? So what we got is, like, they're not normies. but they're trying to put on the trappings of norminess, right? They're like the Christmas sweater. What's wrong with that? Hey, the American flag. What's wrong with that? Hey, you know, barbecue in the 4th of July. What's wrong with that? You know what I mean? It's almost, and they're not. Haas is not a fucking normie. Coffin is I mean, and there's nothing wrong with not being a normie. Granted, right? Like that's not the problem with these people, right? But they have this fetish for normies. They have this fetish for being one with the imagined proletariat, who they look down on, who they stereotype, and who they obviously don't fucking know. And it's cringe as fuck.
Was ultimately
you
what
can
we would
use
call
them
today
to
socialism
beatbox,
with American characteristics.
Moppin' Coffin, Moppin'
His book,
Coffin,
by the way,
Moppin',
is called Towards a
Coffin,
Soviet
Moppin',
America,
Coffin,
if you're
Moppin',
interested
Coffin.
in that. He also criticizes state-instituted patriotism in that text as well, but that's very much not what we're talking about. And if you recall, there were Twitter people saying, socialism with America.
It's basically a form of socialistic patriotism, because it feels off if that's what it's supposed to be. I think socialism with American nationalism is dangerous. Yeah, I'd say so.
Characteristics is just the Nordic model.
Ameriboy.
Which again is
Ameriboy.
opposite of Marxist-Leninism.
It's so fucking stupid. There will be no such thing as a socialism that starts in any place that does not take on characteristics of the society it springs forward from, because the conditions in that society will force it to. You cannot escape the fact that the conditions of the society that exists prior is what socialism springs forward from. You cannot escape that. If indeed there is still a United
If you hate the USA, you hate my grandma's apple
States,
pie.
as we develop socialism, that will be socialism with American characteristics. It will not spring forward from idealism. They all think that socialism is something that you can vote into existence or convince people to manifest in their vision boards or what the fuck ever. It does.
And scientific.
So there's a reason why it matters that William Z. Foster not only wrote Towards the Soviet America, but was the top billing on Marxism, Leninism versus revisionism. There's a specific reason why this is relevant to this. And it is an essay that Lenin wrote called On the National Pride of the Great Russians. Now, we're not going to read this thing in its entirety, but there are a few selections from this that are extremely relevant to what we're talking about. Is a sense of national pride alien to us, great Russian class-conscious proletarians? Certainly not. We love our language and our country, and we are doing our very utmost to raise her toiling masses, which, by the way, I want to quickly emphasize that he is italicizing her because he wants to stand in stark contrast to people using the phrase fatherland, because this bitch will not give up. He's going serious girl boss in terms of Mother Russia.
Chat, did you know that I got called a girl boss the other day? Do you think I'm a girl boss? Does anybody here think I'm a girl boss? Like,
He is.
We are doing our very utmost to raise her toiling
like not in a good way either.
masses,
Like,
i.e.
in the
9/10 of
negative
her
sense,
population, to a level of democratic and socialist consciousness. To us, it is most painful to see and feel the outrages, the oppression, and the humiliation our fair country suffers at the hands of the czars, butchers, the noblest, and the
I don't think you're allowed to be a girl boss with ADHD like mine, right?
capitalists. We take pride in the resistance to these outrages put up from our midst, from the great Russians, in that midst having produced Radistchev, the Decembrists, and the revolutionary commoners of the 70s. In the great Russian working class having created in 1905 a mighty revolutionary party of the masses.
Socialist patriotism rejects nationalism. I'm not seeing that here. I feel like Peter is sneaking nationalism back in, yeah.
And in the great Russian peasantry
Yeah, I know,
having begun
right?
to turn towards democracy and set about overthrowing the
I just don't understand how anybody who knows anything about me could think
clergy and the landed proprietors.
He's advocating for a sense of pride in Russia's people and how that's an integral force of proletarian revolution.
Absolutely. And there is an implication that in order to be patriotic, one has to reject the
I think
state
they might have mixed me up.
in this paragraph.
I think they might have mixed me up with another Twitch politics streamer.
He goes further into that in the
That
next
happens
selection.
a lot, though.
However,
I've been getting mixed up with Bad Bunny. I've been getting mixed up with, like...
it's important to understand the germ of that is here.
We are full of a sense of national pride, and for that very reason we particularly hate our slavish past. When the land nobility
You never see me drone
led
anyone.
peasants into war to stifle the freedom of Hungary, Poland, Persia, and China, and our slavish present. When these self-same landed proprietors, aided by the capitalists, are loading us into a war in order to throttle Poland and the Ukraine, crush the democratic movement in Persia and China, and strengthen the game of Romanovs, Babrinskys, and Pryshkevskys, who are a disgrace to our great Russian national dignity.
I don't know, ASD. I've seen the same screenshots you've seen, and I don't recognize them, right?
Nobody is to be blamed for being born a slave, but a slave who not only eschews striving for freedom, but justifies and
So in other words, whoever created those folders was not me.
eulogizes his slavery. For example, calls the throttling of Poland and the Ukraine, etc., a defense of the fatherland of the Great Russians. Such a slave is a lick-spittle and a boor who arouses a legitimate feeling of indignation, contempt, and loathing. No nation can be free if it oppresses other nations, said Marx and Engels, the greatest representatives of consistent 19th century democracy, who became the teachers
and because they haven't really shown anything inside there, I can't really say if anything in there even comes from my Discord, right? But I do know that there was a lot of, the mods involved in producing the, showing the dossier to people were, the same ones that would have been contributing to anything that came from the Discord. So, I can only imagine what's in there has more to do with them than it does to do with me. I think it has more to do, I think that this whole thing, you can trace it back to the fact that I fired some mods, and they thought that I couldn't deal without them. They thought that I'd fall apart, and instead my views went up, and they weren't very happy about that. So they had to do something to get rid of this awful no-comment-chick. And I've got plenty of enemies ready to listen. If you say NCC bad, those enemies will give you a fucking platform to say it on, right?
The revolutionary proletariat. And full of a sense of national pride, we great Russian workers want, come what may, a free and independent, a democratic, republican, and proud great Russia, one that will base its relations with its neighbors on the human principle of equality, and not the feudalist principle of privilege, which is so degrading to a great nation. Just because we want that, we say, it is impossible in the 20th century and in Europe, even in the far east of Europe, to defend the fatherland. Otherwise,
I think that what the dossier is really is a Rorschach, okay? And you know what a Rorschach is? It's a shape made by taking ink, putting it on a paper, folding it together, and then you got a shape, right? And you can look at that ink blob and say, I think I see a horse. I think I see a person. I think I see a squirrel, right? You can see a lot of things in that ink blob, just like you could see a lot of things in the cloud. So if somebody gives you incomplete information that is just like, here's some folders and here's some screenshots of videos and screen grabs, right? Whatever your imagination draws up, and if you're a paranoid streamer whose name is on that list, then you're gonna think, you can create whatever you want to say is in there, is in there, right? It could be anything. But in reality, if it's from my Discord, then it's probably populated by links to videos and timestamps, right? The same as anybody else's Discord would be, right? Potential content to cover, potential things to talk about, potential things that, a mod might think that I should see just for background, or something that a mod might think that I should cover on stream. It's whatever's in the Discord, right? I don't even know, and they haven't shown it, and that's on purpose, right? Because I think that any exposition of whatever they have would implicate them, and that's the true fact of the matter.
Them by using every revolutionary means to combat the monarchy, the landowners and the capitalists of one's own fatherland, that is, the worst enemies of our country. We say that the great Russians cannot defend the fatherland otherwise than by desiring the defeat of Tsarism in any war, this as the lesser evil to 9/10 of the inhabitants of Great Russia. For Tsarism not only oppresses those 9/10 economically and politically, but also demoralizes, degrades, dishonors, and prostitutes them by teaching them to oppress other nations and to cover up this shame with hypocritical and quasi-patriotic.
I mean, think about the chilling effect that this whole thing has had on political YouTube and political Twitch. It's now been somewhat criminalized to look into other streamers, to react to other streamers. You know what I mean? It's been shown that can hurt you, right? That's seen as a hostile act. What I would say is that a lot of these streamers, they don't want accountability. They don't want anybody holding their feet to the fire the way that I've done over the past 6 months, since I've come to terms with the fact that the clout system has fundamentally turned Twitch politics against marginalized people. And you can see so many examples of that. And if you stand against that, and if you stand against the debate bros, and if you stand against the creeping reactionary nature of Twitch politics, then you've got to stand with me on this, okay? Because I'm the only one holding their feet to the fire.
Like phrases. He goes so far as to say that support of the prior state, of the bourgeois state, or even specific to czarist regimes, is quasi-patriotic.
Yeah. If what you want is a free and open social media environment, then you've got to support, you know...
And that real patriotism is opposition towards this and binding together as a Russian people to oppose the Tsar in this past historical legacy of what he's talking about.
Well, I mean, look at also the fact that I was approaching 1,000 subs on YouTube. What happened the last time I approached 1,000 subs on YouTube? I got clobbered by Dylan, right? And so I think that there's, you know, people out there that are afraid of my increasing influence. That's what this is. An attempt to stifle my contribution to discourse in the cradle, right? This is, you know, if this is allowed to stand, it's going to have a chilling effect on everybody. So if you believe in free speech, if you believe in accountability, if you believe that no creator is above scrutiny, then... And also, if you... Anyway, like, this is the whole thing, is that, like, essentially, the dossier that they've made, I could go into anybody's Discord right now and make a similar dossier. Just like, okay, here's a link about Destiny, here's a link about Vosh, here's a link about Peter Coffin, there we go, dossier, Vosh, Destiny, Peter Coffin. You've been keeping files on these people. That's like the Stasi.
About feudalism and the principle of privilege that dictates feudal policies.
The ruling class, though.
Right.
So ultimately, if you apply this to the United States of America today, what is that? It's quasi-patriotic to support the U.S. state, but to support the vast majority of people in America of any background, that is pride in America. That is what we are advocating for. We are not advocating against internationalism. We're not advocating against the international proletariat. We would at any time, just as Lenin said right here, support the international proletariat over our own bourgeois state. He is specifically saying it's not defending the fatherland to support the wars that the fatherland perpetuates in Eastern Europe against, say, what was
Poland, the Ukraine,
Poland,
Persia.
Ukraine, Persia, etc. That is not patriotic.
That's what I'm saying, is that these people so desperately want to be normies. They so desperately want to see themselves as proletariat, and by their own analysis, right? Which is rude, because you will see, was it Jackson Hinkle? I can't remember who, but it was one of these creators, right, that put forward the proposition that class doesn't even have to do with income, right? Like they're separating this out, right? And so that what they're really saying is that it's culture, right? What culture are you two from? I can read it. It's so apparent. You're from academic culture. Now, do I think that makes you bad? No. But you seem to think that should make you bad, right? And you're trying to hide it. You're trying to act like normies. You're trying to be like, oh, no, I'm not like those leftoids. You've got it. You've got the fingerprints of academia all over you, and you keep trying to deny it. And it's not really a crime anyway.
In Lenin's eyes.
Like Jackson, yeah, by his own analysis, he isn't working class, right?
Using the rhetoric of the Tsar and the fatherland there as quasi-patriotism. But here's the biggest problem with it, and this is why I specifically included that Zoe Baker tweet. To imply that there will be no socialism with American characteristics, or socialism with any country that exists currently,
they're hiding their power level, yeah.
Is ultimately to deny.
Well, and I think there's fundamentally something that's kind of elitist and manipulative about their whole take, right? I think that they view the working class as pawns, right? And that they think that they're smart enough to use their rhetoric to move those pawns exactly where they want them, and they don't realize that you don't move anyone exactly where you want them to. People hear your words, and they're going to get a slightly different impression of what you're saying than what you're giving out. So that's why, like, language is so important in these matters.
The lower stages of communism.
Right, exactly.
Because there will not be a world revolution that occurs at once. That's not going to happen.
In her mind, there will be.
In her mind, there will be.
She has a PhD in anarchism.
Yeah, and they'll tweet about a general strike enough, and then everyone in the world will do it for one day, and that'll be...
why do they hate Zoe Baker so much?
The end of capitalism.
Well, and it so gives away the game, too, with Zoe Baker doing that quote.
Yes.
The Gaudi quote, because it's like...
The whole world is our country.
Yeah. Which means that...
Listen, I mean, I could see how that could be recontextualized in a like colonialist manner, right?
That, like, you think
I don't
that has some
think that's
kind
what
of
Zoe was
material
saying.
relevance, which if that were the case, we would be in communism already.
Yeah, exactly.
And we could just like push the communism button.
Oh, there's your problem. You had the society switch set to capitalist.
Oh, wait, shit. Fuck, we forgot. The whole world is our country. Now we can do communism.
That's pure idealism. It's pure idealism.
Pure ideology.
God,
pure idealism.
Pure.
The one thing that I kind of want to double down on a little bit.
Listen, you have to have a cold to do Zizek, okay?
I do think it's very...
I shouldn't make fun of that. You know what? Honestly, chat, I think that Zizek has, like, chronic allergies. I think that Zizek... I probably shouldn't make fun of Zizek's speaking affects, because I'm guessing that there's an underlying health condition at work, maybe.
Very strange that the response to this Jackson Hinkle tweet, somebody who like makes content that's very explicitly communist and supportive of the international proletariat, direct Marxist-Leninist ideas being put forward.
Also got himself in trouble over questioning the state line on the Syrian government.
Yeah.
The U.S. state line on it.
Yeah, and just very explicitly as a Marxist-Leninist, prioritizing the needs of the most marginalized of the working class in the United States at the forefront of an American proletarian revolution. I find it so strange that someone who is so explicitly that is immediately targeted by people who claim to want a stateless, classless society. Like, they're more interested, rather than like having a conversation with this person that is collaborative and working together and maybe seeing the merits of what they're saying, they're more interested than painting an outspoken communist as a bad person, and thus further driving a wedge.
Yes, that's the problem we have with Jackson Hinkle, that he's an outspoken communist, right?
In the spaces that are talking about this, and it's not only Twitter. This is a microcosm of a larger problem in how American communists discuss communist projects.
And ultimately, it's not just a rejection of him saying, I'm a patriot. It's a rejection of the American people.
And it's also saying, like, if you think this, you're racist, you're a white supremacist.
They act so bougie.
You support the U.S. state. Which
yeah, and listen, I wouldn't essentialize them by that, but, like, it's like their own fucking analysis applied to them does. Their own analysis applied to them does essentialize them.
Fucking ridiculous, as we see in that
preclude
quote, that
taking their viewpoint
interests.
seriously.
It is a rejection of ultimately the American people. It's a rejection that they are somehow important in the overall pursuit of communism. My communism doesn't include the white proletariat. And like, it's like, well, nobody said the white proletariat, bitch. Yeah. No one's talking about white people. No one has been. You're the one who said that. You're the one who assigned patriotism to white people.
You're the one that assigns America to white people.
Exactly.
Do you think that people are going to think that you're supporting their interests if you say, hey, fuck America, fuck you, fuck your friends, fuck your family, fuck where you live? Do you think that people are going to be like, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
like,
this person gets
especially people who don't agree with you.
I don't know, but I think that's one banger of a tweet, Miss ACD. You should put that out.
Yeah.
You should put that out, Miss ACD, right now. Put that shit out.
Maybe somebody who is
that's a banger of a tweet right there.
Esoteric, erudite, like, anarchist.
You could take Meister that shit. Go do it. Go make some.
Like, yeah. Most
chase
Americans
some clout with that
like
shit.
That. Derived from any background, any socioeconomic any working
you want to
class socioeconomic status, any race, any ethnicity, any sexual gender minority status, any disability status. Most people are not like that outside of your little fucking Twitter group chat that quotes Pietro Gori. Like,
there's a reason that the concentration.
Okay, you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to reference theory anymore. Apparently,
the capital keeps promoting,
even though they do it all the time, and then they look down at people for not,
which are not dangerous to capital at all. There's a reason for that.
There's a reason that it's beneficial to have communists thinking that it's good to faction themselves.
The state is only a superstructure, but also that has elements of base. Every socialist state based project has reproduced the bourgeois as a bureaucratic class. Yep.
And good to hate Americans.
Because we can't get past social hierarchy.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying, is to take an unpopular position that is ineffective for enacting communist goals. That's wonderful.
But there will absolutely be multiple stages of communism. What are they?
The first one,
is this a quiz?
The first stage of communism. And remember, every time
I would love to see a jump cut right here.
That we bring this forth, it's important to think about it historically and dialectically.
And it's important to stall to give yourself time to remember the stages of communism. No, just kidding, Miss ACD. Just kidding. Just kidding.
When I am having sex with your mom, and the second stage is when I
am having sex with your dad. Yeah.
am having sex with your dad.
Yes!
That's all for today. Thanks again for watching or listening. This is Pact. I'm Peter.
Okay,
This is
okay,
Ask My
never
Comedy
mind.
Doctor to help us out.
Never mind. I guess Miss ACD is based. I guess Miss ACD is based. Okay, now chat, we're not going to spend much time with this because I know you don't like this next. Okay, patriotic communism. But you know that Caleb Maupin has had something to say about this. Is this another Haas video? Oh my god. Oh, they had a discussion. They had a talk. Wow, that's long. We're not going to watch that. Oh, here we go. Here's a nice clip.
Tip number 7.
This is
patriotic.
Just enough.
Socialism will make life better for the overwhelming majority of the people living in the United States. Socialism is not about trying to make the lives of people in the United States worse. It's about making it better. If we had an economy where the means of production and the centers of economic power were planned rationally, we could raise living standards across the United States. We could create universal employment. We could, rebuild crumbling infrastructure. We could make new scientific breakthroughs.
The city
Socialism
builders, yeah,
would make a better country for the people of the United States. And furthermore, part of doing that would be improving our relationship with the world. Right now, the United States functions with its military all across the planet, doing the dirty work of big multinational corporations and bankers. Instead, if the United States had a relationship with countries across the planet based on win-win cooperation, that would be much better for the country overall, right? Socialism would improve the lives of the overwhelming majority of the people in the United States. Now, for Rockefeller and Carnegie...
Now, with most people, like, I don't know, the bankers thing, is a little bit of a tip-off, right? Especially with Maupin.
DuPont, for, the billionaire...
Especially given how often Maupin dog whistles, right?
Banker elite, those
banker
who own
elite.
the giant...
Oh, yes, the elite, the elite ones, right? Those elite... Yeah, we know what you're saying. We know what you're saying, dude.
Oil monopolies, sure, that may not make their lives better. They would no longer be ruling the country. But for the overwhelming majority of the people in the United States, having an economy that functioned rationally and was planned strategically in order to make life better would overwhelmingly benefit them. And there's nothing wrong with being patriotic. Nationalism is different than patriotism.
That is some yikes.
Nationalism is chauvinistic. It is loyalty to one's own nation at the expense of others, right? It's saying my nation or my nationality, and nation is not the same as country, but that's a whole other conversation. It's saying that my nationality is superior to others, looking out only for your nationality.
I mean, I agree. I'm not trying to conflate patriotism with nationalism, but what I am saying is that patriotism involves looking at a country as a good in and of itself. That's the problem. That's the problem. You shouldn't be looking at anything as a good in and of itself. That is some fucking moral reasoning right there. That is some fucking moral logic. That is precluding deductive analysis, right? And you can't really go anyplace good from there. You're not going to be able to, think meaningful thoughts that you know what I mean? You're going to get led around. This is.
But patriotism is simply loving the people of the country in which you live, right?
But that's solidarity. Loving the people in your in your life, in your community, right? That's just solidarity. Why do you need another word for it? We already have a word for it on the left. Why are you trying to? What are you doing? What is your game?
In Sweden,
Satan
and you want
at the
better life and
fountainhead.
care about
Yes,
Swedes,
yes.
then you can be patriotic.
The scans of his book, yeah, right. They covered that. I think it was like Thought Slam, the Serfs, and they herself covered the Satan at the Fountainhead, and yeah, that thing was full of so many fucking dog whistles.
Live in Zimbabwe, and you want a better life for the people of Zimbabwe?
Should we do that sometime? Chat, give me ideas. Okay, like after we get done with Caleb, I'm gonna come out and I'm gonna ask you for some ideas of content to do for our members. Like, what kind of content would get you to consider like membership, right? And that is going to be so that we can do stuff that that might not be as algorithm friendly, but that is still of interest to people, because I kind of think that of the people that are really into my stuff, that there's stuff that they would enjoy me doing that I can't do and be like algorithmically viable. So I want to cover some of that material just for the members. And don't worry, you're still gonna get I just want people to know when I talk about memberships, like if you can't afford one, I love you. I want you here. I don't like, I'm not, you know, like, right, I'm not begrudging you at all. Like, I totally understand that. I don't have much money myself right now, so I completely understand that. I want you to be here, and I want you to participate in the discourse, right? The membership stuff is just going to be a little extra, maybe.
You care about people in Zimbabwe, you can be patriotic.
They were foghorns,
a socialist can be patriotic to the United States, wanting a better
King.
life for the people. In fact, I would say to be truly patriotic, you need to be a socialist, because only socialism will break the United States out of imperialism and capitalism and allow conditions for people in the USA to get better. And there's no contradiction between patriotism and internationalism. One can believe in building a global community and wanting to have friendly relations with countries all over the world and still love the people of the country in which they live. Yes, if people think that socialism is about hurting the country in which they live or hurting themselves or hurting their communities, they're not going to support it.
I mean, that's not what I think, but I don't think that I should look at my country as a good in and of itself, right? It's good in and as much as we make it good, right? That's where the goodness comes from a country, is the state of it. Caleb, I'm going to blow your mind with this, but the material conditions are what make, But
if they can come to understand that socialism is about making their life better, they'll support it. So be patriotic. Socialism is about making a better life for the people of the United States. Furthermore, it is the billionaire banker elite that has not only waged horrendous wars around the world, but also gutted the United States economically, destroyed the living standards, allowed the infrastructure to crumble, allowed wages to decline. The billionaire monopolists are not patriotic. They are loyal only to their profits. And it is the people of the United States coming together to reject them and to stand together and fight for a better life.
This is why I worry about demagoguing about specific groups of people rather than structures, rather than dynamics, rather than, right? Okay, so what Maupin has done is he's taken a gun, he's put a bullet in it, and he's cocked that trigger, right? But he hasn't defined who he's talking about yet. And so him define this is the danger, and it doesn't have to be him either. He could set people up with this, cock the gun, get the loaded gun, and then somebody else takes the gun and they point it at who they want to get rid of, right? That is what happens. That is how scapegoats are made, and that is how revolutions die and become atrocities instead, right? That is how the working class is deluded to go after people that are not its enemies in the interest of assholes that are manipulative and that are elitist, like Peter Coffin, like Caleb Maupin, like Haas, right? Sorry, like, I'm not saying that I don't want to give you the implication that any of these people are specifically like, fash, although Caleb loves the dog whistles, I guess. But that what they're doing is they're loading up a gun. When Caleb uses language like that, he's loading up a gun, he's cocking the trigger, and all that has to happen is it gets pointed and shot, okay? This is dangerous.
Our people and for our communities, that's what socialism is all about. And so socialism is very patriotic in the essence of what the term actually means.
All right, so here we go. Let's get ourselves back to this screen. Okay, so chat, if you have any ideas about the kind of content that you'd like to see, my content is gonna be changing. They are counter-revolutionary. Yeah, my content, I'm gonna be changing up my content a little bit. I'm gonna be trying to cover some lighter stuff too. I'm gonna try to not make it always so serious, because I feel like I burn your adrenals out or something, like, with just this constant beat of kind of stuff that feels so hectic, right? Especially given the amount of like drama that I've been subject to, the attempt by certain people in Twitch politics to just farm me for drama, right? And my desire not to participate in their monetization plan, right? Because that's what that gets into. When you get into a back and forth with people like this, you just end up like, you're making money for them. And I'm not part of that project anymore. I don't like the debate bros. I don't like the direction of Twitch politics, and I'm not going to play their games anymore, all right? So, I mean, you've seen some of this, like, you know, when I go on Log Off Already and just kind of kick it and have fun with Cole and Nia and Q and the rest, right? And you're going to see more of this too, more of a mix of content. I'm still going to be covering the stuff that I cover. I'm still going to be doing, you know, analysis of rhetoric, analysis of debate, analysis of you know, creators and you know, kind of their effect on the platform, their effect on the larger discourse, right? I'm not running away from that, but I'm going to try to diversify a little bit more and you know, be doing some content like more like the 2B2T video that I did, like that, you know, talks about other stuff that you might be interested in. If you have some ideas, ghouls, if you have some ideas about that, could we get a Discord link in chat really quick? Can we throw a fresh Discord link? I don't even know. I feel like the one that I have in here right now is like, it's like a old crusty Discord link that no longer works, and that people could probably use a fresh link. Yeah, I'm gonna be taking your suggestions. More Garfield Eats. Okay, yeah, more of that kind of material. That's what I feel like I need, is like a little bit more humor, a little bit more levity, a little bit more of a mix, because my stream has always been about vibes. And ever since, like, I've been fighting the good fight, ever since I've stood up to the clout networks and the debate bros, I feel like we've been stuck in this ultra serious mode. I'm going to try to mix that up a little bit, because I know that you all don't want to be just, you know, on the edge of your seats for the entirety of watching me, right? Yeah, the fresh link just dropped, so get in there if you're not already. And any ideas that you have, I'd be interested in hearing, especially as far as content to cover for the members that will be trying to do some content that might not be algorithmically friendly, that's just, you know, something that people want to see, right? And you know, don't worry, you know, if you're not a member, I'm going to try to have some kind of pipeline where the members get it first, but you get it eventually. The other thing that members get is the quicker access to videos. Like, the videos will come out, they'll be able to watch the videos before other people, so it's like a little sneak preview, I guess. You know, you can think of yourself as a, you know, it's like a little VIP ticket to, you know, see the content earlier. And obviously at the higher levels, we've got like wallpaper and stuff like that. At the lower levels, you've at least, even for the $2.99, you're at least getting all the emotes that we have, and we're going to be adding more. We can have as many, I think we can have a lot more emotes, right? So looking into adding that. And I feel like, even though I'm going to be still streaming on Twitch, I feel like the future's on YouTube. I'm going to say that now. I might be proven wrong later. I might change my mind, but I really strongly feel like my future is on YouTube. I came from YouTube, and you know, from the comment sections, if you haven't heard, right? And I feel like I'm moving back there, right? Because YouTube's been good to me. Even though I've done Twitch for a lot longer than YouTube, I have almost twice as many views on YouTube as I do on Twitch. So it seems like YouTube's been good to me, so I'm going to be good to YouTube, and that means being good to you. So be on the lookout, and we're going to be trying to add more stuff for Patreons and for members. I'll try to make that stuff similar. I'll try to kind of move my Patreon into a direction that's similar to what the YouTube is. I don't know. Well, there's a lot to figure out, chat, because I haven't even thought about monetization. You can tell by the fact that I never asked for money. I never asked, except for in that one video that somebody clipped, right? Where I was like, it's just $5. It's just $5. No, that wasn't me. That was another stream. I'm sorry, chat. But you know, I had one video where I looked pretty cringe. Okay, but yeah, like we're gonna be you know, looking to add some more content for people who support the channel and still you know, being there with what the rest of you have come to expect. Don't feel bad if you cannot contribute on that level. Even just being here, liking the videos, and you know, spreading the link, sharing that on any Reddits that you have that might be interested, or any place else you think you could drop that link to get people interested. Word of mouth is a great way to spread the word about what we're doing here. So thank you all very much. It's been really fun hanging out with you. I am gonna probably go over to Twitch now and hang out on Twitch a little bit. If you want to come over and see what that's like, it's a little different, but you know, we've been having fun over there in the afternoons, playing some games and covering content. If you want to know what's the difference between my YouTube and my Twitch stream, my YouTube stream will usually be focused on one topic, right? Whereas the Twitch stream is more like a hangout spot, right? Where I cover something and then we talk, and then it's more like unstructured. It's like there's diversity in a stream, right? You'll hear about different things. Whereas on the YouTube stream, it'll generally be like, one stream focused on one subject, even though we might be watching more than one video. Anyway, thank you so much, everybody, and I will see you, meow meow, over on Twitch. Meow meow. Much love.